All right, you're welcome to the Java Full Stack Mastery course. In this course, we're going to deep dive into Java Full Stack development with some of the latest technologies in the industry today. And we're going to be implementing different functionalities, and we're going to be working with different technologies to have something, a complete application working at the end of this course. So in this course, we're going to be working with Spring Boot, React front end. We're going to be managing our React application with Redux Toolkit, and we're going to be implementing JWT. We're going to be working with Java. We're going to be securing our application using Spring Security, and we're going to be working with MySQL database. And also, we're going to integrate Stripe payment gateway to actually allow customers to validate their credit card and make payment for any products they're going to be purchasing from this application. And also, we're going to implement refresh token. And at the end of the day, we're going to actually move our application from our local environment up to the cloud. And at the end of this course, we're going to have a complete working application right there in the cloud that everyone all over the world with access to internet can actually interact with our application right there in the cloud. In this video, we're going to start looking at the basics of working with React. So what exactly is React, and why do we have to use it? So here you can see that React actually is a JavaScript library, and take note that React actually is not a framework, but it's a JavaScript library that is developed by Facebook for building user interfaces, particularly when it comes to building single-page applications where fast and interactive experience is needed. And also, React actually allows developers to create large web applications that can change data without reloading the whole of the page. So actually, just like we've seen right here, React is a JavaScript library. And React is not a framework, it's just a library that is designed with JavaScript. And this library is designed by Facebook with large support. And also, React actually helps developers to create large web applications. And one of the good features of React is that, so when a page is being updated, React will not upload or will not reload the whole of the page, but rather it will load only the part of that page where the update is being made. And by doing that, it actually improves performance of the website. And just like we said right here, why do we have to use React? React is really popular out there right now. It's one of the most favorite front-end libraries that is used for front-end development right now. And that is because React actually is a component-based architecture. So what does this mean? So React allows us to actually build every functionality as a component. Right? So a component is actually a self-contained, we can just call it a self-contained element that actually contains every functionalities for that component to work properly, to work well. And right here we see that React applications are built using reusable components, which makes development more manageable and scalable. So by building every functionality as a single component is actually make our application to be manageable, because when every functionality is a single component of its own, so it helps us to it makes that application to be manageable easily, because when there is any problem, we just go to that component to get it fixed rather than scanning the whole of the project, right? And also we see right here is visual DOM. So React uses the visual representation of the DOM, allowing it to efficiently update and render only the parts of the UI that change, improving performance. So like we've said, when one of the problems that actually makes website too slow is that when every single part of the web page is being updated, the whole of the page will reloaded. So in a situation whereby the whole of the page will be reloading every time, it actually slows down the performance of the website. But using React, the website has the ability, or React actually has the ability to reload only the part of that UI that is updated. It's not going to load the whole of the UI, right? So by so doing, it actually improves performance of the page. So for example, right here, we can see right here, this is a website, right? So we have the header, the sidebar, the footer, we have the search bar, we have the content, the main content. So now you can see everything right here as their separate component. So for example, you can see right here, the header is built as a separate component. The footer is a separate component, sidebar is a separate component, and so goes to the search bar and the main content. So now, for example, if there's any problem to be fixed in the sidebar, we just have to go to this component to get it fixed, right? And also, if there's any problem to fix at the footer, we just go to the footer component and get it fixed. So it actually enhances readability and maintainability of our code, and it makes our code manageable. So also, one of the good features of this is that by creating every functionality as a separate component, it helps us to actually control where different functionalities are being rendered. So for example, in our application, maybe not every page that might need sidebar and not every page that might need the search bar, right? So now by building all these ones as a separate component, it helps us to just import the sidebar to the only page where a sidebar is needed, and also we can just only import the search bar to only page where search bar is needed. So it actually helps our project more scalable and maintainable. So that is one of the beauty of working with React library. Now, how do we set up the environment when we want to develop the React application? Now, the first thing we should know is that before we can run React, before we can start working with React in our system, we need to install the Node.js. Remember that Node.js is the JavaScript is an engine that actually runs JavaScript outside the browser, right? So now we see that JavaScript actually on the server side actually needs Node.js to run, because JavaScript is a language of the front end, right, of the browser. But for us to run JavaScript at the server side, we need to install Node.js. And after that, now we need to install the npm, which is the Node Package Manager, which is used to manage packages while working with Node.js. So after that, now we're going to make sure that we have a code editor being installed on our machine. So Visual Studio Code is one of the most favorite or the most widely used code editor, front-end code editor out there, because it supports plethora of extensions and plugins that can easily be plugged in and removed. So it's really working with VS Code is really flexible. You enjoy a lot of functionalities that actually comes along with VS Code, and it's one of the code editor right there for JavaScript and React development. So for us to start working with Node.js, working with React, we need to install Node.js, Node Package Manager, and also we need to have a code editor. So if you don't want to use VS Code, you are very free to use any code editor of your choice, but I really prefer using VS Code when it comes to front-end development. And so the next thing we're going to do right now is to head up to the Node.js website to install Node.js and npm. And after that, we're going to install VS Code. So let's go there and get it done. All right, so now before installing Node.js, I just want you to check your machine if Node.js has already been installed. So for you to check if Node.js is being installed on your machine, you're just going to open your CMD, which is your command line. So for example, here, I'm going to open the Git badge right here, and then I'm just going to type right here, NDO, which is Node. I'm just going to say the version, right? So when I type this right here and hit on this, you're going to see that I have Node version 20 right here running on my machine. So which means Node.js has been installed on my machine. But if you type this, if you run this command and you did see anything right here, if you did see the version of Node, it means Node.js has not been installed on your machine. So for that now, we just have to go to the Node.js to actually get it installed on your machine. So coming right here to the Node.js website, so here we're just going to type this one right here to actually come to the Node.js website. And here, where it is the home page of the Node.js, so you're going to come here to just click on download. So when you click on download right here, you're going to see here, currently the latest version of Node is version 23, right? But now the latest stable version, which is the long-term support version, is 22, right? So you can see here that I'm using this long supported version, which is version 20, long supported version. This is the one I'm using on my machine. But now it's always good to actually use the current latest version, the long-term support version, which is the current one, which is 22. So now you can just leave this one as selected right here, and you come here to choose your machine type. You're using Windows, you're using Mac OS, you're using Linux. So just choose any machine you're using right here, and you're going to see the description on how to get it installed, right? So now we're going to choose like using it with npm. For example, if you're running Docker, just like this, you can just see right here the description if you're using Docker, and also using this one right here, get Node.js, this one here for Windows using Docker with npm. So you can see the description right here. And so if you are using this description right here, this how you should go about doing that. But in our case right now, we are not using Docker, but I'm using Windows, right? So I'm just going to scroll down right here to get this one, to get Node.js for Windows. So also you can come here to actually choose your machine type, choose according to your machine environment. And so now I'm just going to download this installer. So whatever environment you're using, I will just prefer you to download the installer right here, because the installer will actually get it installed and just configure all the necessary parts that you need to be configured in your machine. So download the installer and just follow the instruction and get it installed. So here you can just choose any one you are using. You see the installer right here. So Linux, you see the standalone binary right here. So just choose your machine and download it, and then go to your machine, follow the instruction and get it installed. So after that, after the installation, you're going to go back to run the command we just run in our command line and check the version and to make sure that Node has been installed on your machine. So coming back here, you just have to rerun this code. You just have to rerun this command right here to make sure that you have the Node being installed on your machine. And after that, by downloading that installer to actually install the Node.js, you're going to have the npm automatically installed along by that installer, right? So you can just come here to check npm version, and you're going to see this right here. So you're going to see the npm version that is installed on your machine, right? And also, if you want to update your npm, you can just come here to say npm update. So you can just run these commands to actually update your npm on your system. So you see that everything is updated right here. So if you have gotten all this installed on your machine, then the next thing you're going to do here is to install Visual Studio on your machine. So for that now, you're going to come here to actually come to Visual Studio Code, this one right here. So if you come to visualstudio.com right here, code.visualstudio.com right here, so it's going to bring you to the home page where you're going to select your machine, right? So select your machine and just download the installer and then follow the instruction to get it installed on the machine. So if you have gotten the Visual Studio Code installed on your machine or any code editor installed on your machine, and you have confirmed that you have Node.js and that the npm package, which is the Node Package Manager, is currently installed on your machine, then you're good to go working with React. All right, so now that we have done installing Node.js and our code editor, so in this video, we're going to create our first React app. So for that now, I'm just going to open up my system. So here, I'm going to go to my D directory right here, and I'm going to go to a particular directory. So right here, I've created an empty folder. Just choose any directory and create an empty folder. So right here, I've created an empty folder called EFE, which is the front end. And if I open it right here, you'll see that this folder is actually empty, right? So now I'm just going to right click on this empty folder right here, and then I'm going to open the folder with code, with VS Code. So here I'm just going to say open with code. So here we see that our folder has been opened with VS Code right here. And so the next thing I'm going to do here, I'm using Windows, I'm going to press the Control key and the backtick to open up the terminal. So right here on our terminal, we're going to generate our first React application. But meanwhile, we are going to be using a tool called Vite. I'm going to use Vite to generate this application. And for example, if you don't have Vite in your system, or you can just go to your command line to actually check if you have Vite running in your system. So here you can just open your command line and just type in Vite, right? And you check the version of Vite. So here you can see that I have Vite version 6.0.7 right here. But if you don't have this here, if you don't have Vite running on your machine, since you have gotten Node.js and npm installed on your machine, you can actually install Vite. So here you can just come here to say npm, sorry. So you can say npm install, and you can just install it globally. So here you can just say npm install globally Vite and just hit on enter. And here you're going to see that Vite is actually installed globally on this system, right? So now, after having done this right now, you're going to check again, just go back to the earlier command we run and check for the version of Vite, right? So now, this time around, you're going to see this version right here of Vite. That's to show that you've already gotten Vite installed on your machine. So if you have seen this version, now we're going to go back to VS Code. So coming back into VS Code, now we're going to generate a brand new application using Vite. So for that, now we're going to say npm. So we're going to say npm create Vite. Then we're going to say Vite at latest. Right? We're going to say npm create Vite at latest. Then we're going to hit on enter. And now you're going to see that create Vite at. So now this one is the latest version of Vite, right? So we want to create our application with the latest version of Vite. So here we're going to say yes to proceed. So I'm going to say yes. And so now we're going to give the name to our project, right? So now I'm just going to say, I'm going to say my first app. So I'm going to create my first app and enter. So now we're going to choose the template we're going to use, which is the select the framework or library we're going to use to create this application. So we're going to scroll down right here to select React. And then we're going to select the language we're going to use. So I'm going to scroll down right here to select JavaScript. And now we see that our application, let me push down. So now we see that our application is ready to be created. So now we have created an application right here called my first app. So now we're going to cd, which we're going to change directory inside this folder, and inside this folder we're going to run this command npm install, and after that we're going to run this command to actually view our application on the browser. So the first we're going to do right here is to follow this direction. So we're going to run the cd and go to the directory of our app. So I'm going to say cd my and just enter. So now that we're inside our app directory, so we're going to run npm install. So by running npm install, we just try to install all the dependencies that are associated with our newly created application. So now I'm going to say npm install and hit on enter. So let's wait for a moment while our application is generating. So we're going to come back here when this application has finished creating. So I'm going to pause this video for a while. So coming back here, we see that our application has been generated. So everything has been generated and no vulnerability found. So the next thing we're going to do is to run npm run dev. So if we go up right here, we're going to see the next instruction right here. We're going to say npm run dev to actually run our application in a development environment. So I'm going to say npm run dev and let's hit on enter. So now we see that our application is running at this local host. So the next thing we're going to do is to go to the browser to actually view our application. So now we can rather follow this link, or you can just say Ctrl O and enter, right? So now let's just follow this link. And right here, we see our first application running on our screen. So here we see the counter right here. So now we have created our first application. So see you in the next video. All right, so in our previous video, we have created a brand new React application. So in this video, we're going to take a quick look at our project folders. So right here on VS Code, what I'm just going to do here is that I'm going to leave this terminal running. Then I'm going to open another terminal. And so I'm also going to cd to our app directory. So this one here is to install dependency, and this one is to just leave this one running for hot module replacement, right? So for that, I'm just going to remove this one right here. And now let's open up our project. So this is the brand new project we've created in our previous video. And here we see all the packages or all the directories of our folder, all the files on our folder, right? On our package, on our project. And so here we see all the folder and the files in our project. So the first one right here is the vit config. So this file right here, let me zoom out a little bit. So this file right here is used to config vit. There are some configurations we're going to do here, depends on what we want. But most in case, like in this very project right now, we are not going to touch this file. But in future, in later videos, or maybe in our later project, we might have to come here to do some configuration, and you're going to see how this file actually works, or what is this file used for. And if we go here, our package.json, so this one is the package, or is the file where all our dependencies, all our dependencies are assembled. So for example, right now, this is our brand new React application. We have not installed any dependency. So the default dependencies that actually come with our React is this one right here. So this is the default dependencies that actually comes with our project. So if we look right here, we're having React version 18 that actually comes with our project, which is the dependency right here. And if we go to this section right here, we're going to see another section called dev dependency. So every dependency that is inside this dev environment are required for development purposes. But every dependency that is found right here is required for the application to run properly on production. And if we go up right here in the script section right here, so we see the commands to actually run our application. So this one is the build, which is to build our application for deployment purpose. And this one is dev, just for our application to be run in dev mode, right? So before we move on, what I want to do right here is I want to specify a permanent port for our dev environment. So I'm just going to say, I'm going to specify a port right here. And here I'm going to say this one. You remember last time, if we go to our browser. So if we go to our browser right here, we see that our project is actually running on port 5173, right? So I'm just going to set this one to 5175. So coming back here, I'm going to set it to 5175. So to just be our permanent default port right here. So having done this right now, let's scroll down. So this is just the sections of our package.json. So we're going to see later that every time as we install a new dependency, it's going to be coming here. So as time goes on, we're going to see that this dependency right here will be increasing, and also right here will be increasing depending on what that dependency is used for. So I'm going to close this now and also close this. Let's go right here to our package.log.json, so which is our package/log.json. So this one right here, we might not be doing anything right here because the files that will be here might be generated automatically as we are installing dependency and working our application. We are going to be having some default file, some default entry be generated right here. And now this the HTML, the index.html file right here. So this one is our master template. So this is the master template for our application. So if you look right here, you're going to see that this title right here is what we have on our web, right? So if we go right here, we're going to see that we have Vite plus React, which is Vite plus React. That is what we have right there. So this title right here, we can change it from that template, from that HTML template. So coming back here, I'm just going to say, I'm going to change this one right here from Vite plus React. So I'm going to say my first React app. So that if we go to our browser, we're going to see that this title has been changed. So right here, we see here the title has been changed. We have my first React app, right? So that is the job of that template. So that HTML template is our master template for our project. So coming back here, let's close this further. And also, if we look here, we're going to see a script entry right here. And take note of this main.jsx right here. And also right now, we're going to see a div right here with ID of root, right? So inside here, this is where all our outlet, all our router, all our pages are going to be interpolating. They're going to be displaying right in here. So this div right here with the ID of root is where we're going to be displaying all our content. And this one right here, this script right here, this is coming from our main.jsx. And this is the folder we're having. This is the, let's open up our source directory. So this is the file we're having right here. This main.jsx is the script we're having right here. So if we open up this main.jsx, so we're going to see that nothing in here, but we just have the document, the root tag of our application, right? So we have create root document.get element by ID. So you see here we have element by ID called root. So if we go right here, this is the element that we are trying to get, which is this div is the element and the ID is root. So that is the element, that is get element by ID we're trying to get right here. And then we're going to render this component right in there. So we just try to get this div, we get this div, and then we render the app component right inside the div. So that is the meaning of this one right here. Now, what are we actually rendering inside this div? What are the components? What are the content we're actually rendering? So this app right here, this app component is the app component you're seeing right here. So if we open up this component, we're going to see that. Well, let me just make this widescreen for a moment. So we're going to see that inside here we actually have a lot of component, a lot of content right here. So these are the content that is actually showing in our server, in our web page. So for example, if we go right here, we're going to see that we actually have a tag right here with h1 tag that is actually displaying Vite plus React, right? So if we go right there in our browser, we're going to see that this is what is showing. So coming back here, we see Vite plus React right here, and that is what exactly is showing in that app component we've just seen. So if, for example, right now, if I just remove this one right here and just say Vite React app, and this one is going to show right there on our browser. So right here we have Vite React app, right? That is just that is what we've entered right now. And now coming back here, we're going to see that. So coming back here, we're going to see that we're actually rendering this component right here. So which is we're rendering this component right here inside an element with the ID of root. So that is the element right here. So we are rendering the app component inside this div right here with the ID of root. Now this one right here, we just see that this app is rendered right here. So every component we're going to be creating, so because we are rendering this app right here, so anything that we put inside this app component, anything we actually include inside this return body right here is going to be rendered in here, and it's going to be rendered in here inside this div tag. So that is the job of this element right here. And now, if we go up right here, we're going to see our CSS. This is our CSS file, and also this is our CSS file. And here is our asset, where all our static files are going to be residing, like our images and other static files that we're going to be residing in here. And also, we have the public directory right here for some of our. So if we go here, we'll see the image that is being displayed right there on the browser, right? And right here is our node module that is going to be controlling all our dependencies that we're going to be installing right here. So now we're going to see that this module is actually empty because we have not installed any dependency right here. So this is just a quick overview of our React folder structure. And as time goes on, as we keep working on our project, we're going to see each entry. We're going to see the function of every files and folder right here. And before we round up this section, I just want to show you something right here. So if we take a look at this app right here, we have the app component and we have the app.css. So and if we go here to the app component, we're going to see that this app.css is actually imported right here. So which means this app.css, so every CSS style that is right here is what we are using to control everything in here. So that is the style we're actually seeing in our browser, right? So that is what this one is doing. And also, if we go right here, we see another file called index.css. So every CSS class that is in here, so this is the root file that is controlling our project. So anything we put right here, any CSS class we put right here is going to affect the entire project, right? So that is the job of this index file right here. So now that we have seen a brief overview of our index file, of our application files, so in our next video, we're going to create our first component, or we're going to start working on our newly created project to actually see how we can actually modify our project and also how to create our own content in our project. So I'm going to see you in our next video. In this video, we're going to take a step further in our project. So right here, we have seen all these folders in our previous video. And I'm just going to close these two .css files. So here we have our HTML, we have our main.js, and we have our app.jsx. And right here, if you take a look right here, so this one is our app.jsx that we are actually rendering right here inside our main entry. Remember that this our main.jsx is our entry part, which is our entry point to our project, to our application, right? And so now if we come back right here, so this one right here is, we have the app.jsx, and inside this app, we have some content that are being returned. And if you take a look right here, we have this app extension here called JSX. So if we go right here, you're going to see that we have it extension, we have app.jsx instead of app.js, right? So now actually, this JSX actually means JavaScript XML. right? So now, what actually is this JavaScript XML? So if we go in here, so if we go in, so now if we go in here, we're going to see that here is the curly braces right here, and so this curly braces right here and here. So which means everything right here belongs to this this component right here. So now we're going to see here we have the return body. So this component, this app.jsx right here is actually returning everything right here to the browser, right? And if you look at this right here, it looks like ordinary HTML, because right here you're going to see the div, you're going to see href, you're going to see image. Everything is actually just like HTML syntax we always write. But now in React, this syntax right here we are returning is not called HTML, but it's called JavaScript XML, because it's an extension of HTML. It's an advanced, or maybe a kind of extended HTML, right? That we're actually returning right here. So now if you take a look, if you take a close look right here, you're going to see that we are actually having a kind of curly braces right here to display something. So if you look right here, we have the Vite logo right here. So you're going to see that we have the Vite logo right here, and if we scroll up, this is the logo right here, and this one here is declared as a variable to actually so we are just trying to import this image right here to save it right here, and here we're coming here to actually display. Now if you look at this image right here, we're actually importing. If we go here last time, you're going to see that this is the vite.svg, and that is the image we actually try to import from our directory, from the public directory, and then we're trying to put it right here inside this variable, and then we're trying to display this variable right here. And if you take a look here, you're going to see that we're actually putting this variable inside a curly braces so that it can be displayed. And if you also scroll down right here, you're going to see something right here. So we have a div right here, and inside this div we have a kind of we're trying to attribute a kind of data right here, a kind of value right here, and you're going to see that we're actually trying to, here we have the curly braces as well, and we're trying to attribute something. We try to kind of render, kind of attribute a data right here inside this curly braces in the browser. And this data, this value we're trying to attribute right here is the result of the click we have right here. So this one right here, we have a button. So when this button is clicked, we have a counter right here that is actually counting, right? And then we have a variable right here that is actually counting. Then we're actually trying to attribute the value of the variable right in here each time this button is clicked, right? So that is exactly what we are imputing in our we are actually attributing in our browser. So this syntax is called XML. So it's not HTML, but it's XML. That is why we have, it's not XML, actually it's JSX. It's called JSX. Sorry, not XML. It's called JSX, which is called JavaScript XML, right? So now let's quickly see what exactly this JSX are. So if we come here, this is our representation. So now what actually is JSX? So JSX actually stands for JavaScript XML. So it's a syntax extension for JavaScript commonly used with React. So it's a syntax extension for JavaScript commonly used with React. It allows developers to write HTML-like, which is code that looks like HTML within the JavaScript, making it easier to create and utilize and visualize the structure of our UI component. So that syntax, you can see that it looks like HTML, but it's not an HTML, but it's an extension of, it's an HTML extension for JavaScript. So we write this advanced HTML inside JavaScript. So it's a kind of mixing up HTML and JavaScript together inside the same file, right? To actually display an attribute very fast in the browser. So that is the job of this JSX right here. And also JSX looks similar to HTML, which makes it intuitive for web developers. And now if we move forward right here, we're going to see some example of this syntax. So if we look here, we have the HTML-like syntax. So we have JSX looks similar to HTML, which makes it intuitive for developers. So right here we have the example right here. We have the hello world. It's like HTML, right? Now, if we go right here, we see the JavaScript expressions right here. So we also use this to express JavaScript syntax. So here we're going to see the example right here. We have declared a variable right here called Alex. So we assign a string value to this variable called Alex. And now we are trying to display this variable right here in this extension, which is in this advanced HTML, right, in this JXS. So right here, we just say, okay, we create another variable called element, and we're trying to assign this value inside this element, of which we are going to display in anywhere it's been needed. So here we just try to say hello plus the name. So when we run this script right here, we're going to see different attributes. So for example, right here, this one right here is giving hello world, while this one right here is giving hello Alex, because that is the name right here we're actually trying to display using the curly braces right here to actually interpolate the value of this one right in here, right? So that is so this is how JSX actually works. So that is why it's called JSX. It's actually extension for JavaScript. It's an extended HTML for JavaScript that we write in React apps. So coming right here, we see that everything we're actually displaying right here is the syntax, right? So now we can, so here we have our div. So we can actually remove this, for example, just remove this one here. And now we've left with this one right here and with our button. And also we can just, okay, instead of +1, we can just say, okay, we're going to +5. So each time the button is clicked, we're going to add 5, right? And also we can just remove this one right here, right? And we just leave all this, or we can just remove this one from here too. So we have just left with our title. So we're left with our title and the button right here. So now this is what we're actually returning from this component right now. So let's go to the browser to check this attribute. So coming to the browser, we see that here we have 0, but when we click right here, we're going to see 5, 10, 15, 20, 25, so on and so forth. And here we see that our page has been cleared off just with having the title and the button. So what we're actually seeing here is the attribute of the JSX we're actually displaying from our component. So that is why we're having the extension of those components as .jsx, because they're actually trying to render a JSX content. In our previous video, we have seen the meaning of the syntax we are actually returning to our browser, which is called JSX, right? So in this video, we're going to take a look at what are states, and we're going to take a look at hooks in React. And so right here, we can see that this is our default component that was created for us, right? So this is the app component. And in here, we have some codes being written here that are actually displaying things on the browser. Now, for example, if we look at here, we see something right here, right? And we see 0 right here. And we see something right here called a kind of function right here called useState, right? And we see here, we pass 0 as the value right here. And now coming down right here, we're going to see something, we see this button right here, right? So now we have here, we have this one called count, a variable called count, and we have a function right here called set count, right? And now this variable right here is the one that is actually having this value that we set right here. So this one is just like declaring, a variable called like this equals 0, right? So this is the same thing. I know this one because let me just make it 1. So what we did right here is just exactly what is here. It's the same thing here, just like declaring a variable and assign a 0 value to it, right? And now in the case of React right here, so we declare this value right here, right? And we bring in something called useState, and we pass in we use the useState instead of setting this value direct to this count right here. We use something, we hook it to something right here called useState to actually set the value to 0. So which means when this component gets loaded, the initial value of this count is going to be 0. Now, when this button is being clicked, now the state of this variable is going to change, right? So that it will come right here. So we have the on click event right here. So now when this button is clicked, now here we're using this method, which is this function that we set right here. We are using it to update this count we have right here. So now we declare a variable right here, right? And now we're actually trying to set the subsequent value to this variable right here. So that's why we have here, we have count, right? Equals count plus 5. So here we're actually trying to say, okay, when this button is clicked, we are going to increase the value of count to 5. Each time the button is clicked, we're going to add 5 to the current value. And then we come right here to actually to display the value of count, which is this one right here, right? We actually come here to display the value of count right here, to actually display the current value that that count is holding, right? And if you look right here, we actually try to use this JavaScript syntax, which is the curly braces, to actually attribute the value right here. So that is why, let's go to the browser and actually see what is happening right there. So coming here to the browser, if I refresh right here, so we're going to see that now the initial state of this count is 0, right? So if we click on it, now it has turned to 5. Click again, it has come to 5. So now the state of this variable is actually changing based on the number of times we actually click on this button right here. So now this one is actually called the state of this application. So the state of this component right now, the state of this component when it gets loaded is 0, which is the value right here is 0. Now, when this button is clicked, then we're going to change the state of this variable or of this application to actually hold a different value. So what exactly are state? So let's go to our slide to actually see the brief definition of state. So now we are going to see what are states in React. So state is a built-in object in React components that hold data or information about the component's current situation. It can change over time, usually in response to user actions or network responses. So that is why you see on the browser, when we click on the button, that's the user action. So the user clicks on the button and the state changed from 0 to 5 and subsequent values as the user actually interacts with the button. And right here are some of the key characteristics of states. So states are mutable, which means they are unlike props. Now states are mutable because they can change their status, which is their value can be changed. But props, here we have not seen props yet, but we're going to look at it later. But just take it right now that props here are immutable and pass from parents to child. But state can be changed within the component, right? So a state of a component can be changed, which means they are mutable. And also state is local to the component in which it is being defined. It cannot be accessed directly by other components unless passed down as a props. And also when a state actually triggers a re-render of a component. So when the state of a component changes, React re-renders that component and its children to actually reflect the new value that has been changed, or to reflect the new state of the component. So for example, if we take a look right here, we're going to see that we have a simple component right here, just like the component we have seen in VS Code, the same thing we've seen right here. So now we have a function called counter, right? So right here we've declared a variable, a state variable right here. So this one here is called a state variable, right? And now we assign it to this function right here called useState, and we assign a default value of 0 right here, which is the initial value of 0 right here. So when we click on this button right here, the state is going to change. So here we're actually adding 1 to the state, so that when the button is clicked, then the state is going to change. Then the value is going to be changed from 0 to 1, so on and so forth. So that is the use of state in React. In this video, we're going to take a look at React hooks. What are React hooks and what actually are they used for? So React hooks are functions that let you use state and other React features in functional components. They allow developers to manage state and lifecycle methods without needing to convert functional components into class components. In my previous video, we remember that we talked about states of components, right? So we have tried to understand what are states and what are component states, right? And how are they used? So now a component state is actually being managed by a hook, right? So remember last time we saw something called useState that we set a zero value to, right? That is actually where we declare a state variable called counter, and we set the use state, we pass a zero value to that use state. So that use state actually is called a hook, and it is used to manage the state of that component. So right here, let's take a look at some commonly used React hooks. So here we have the use state, we have the use effect, we have the use reducer, we have the use ref, and we have some other ones that as we progress in this course, we're going to take a look at some of those hooks, and we're going to see what they are actually used for. And remember last time we have seen this hook, this use state hook, last time in the app component we have explored in our previous videos. So as we progress in the course, we are going to see more of hooks and what they are used for. So while working with React hooks, there are some rules we should keep at the back of our mind. Now, number one here is that only call hooks at the top level of a function, right? Don't call hooks inside loops, conditions, or nested functions. This ensures that hooks are called in the same order on every render. So what it means is that we should only call hook at the top level of our components. We should not call hook inside a loop or inside a condition or inside any nested functions, because if we do, those hooks might be called in different orders, right? So they might not call in order. So it will cause error in our application. Now the next one here is that we should only call React hooks from React components or from React functions. You can call hooks from React functional components or custom hooks, not regular JavaScript functions. Now, what it means is that we can only make use of React hooks inside a React component. So for example, if we create a file just with a regular JavaScript file without a React component, we cannot call hooks from those files. We can only call hooks from a React component, and we should call a hook from the top level of a React component. So for example, right here, this is the app component we created last time, right? And now let's take a look at this variable right here. So right here we have the state variable, and we have the function that is actually updating this variable right here, right? And now this one is a hook. This one is called useState hook, right? And now we pass a zero value to this hook, to this useState right here. So which means when this page gets loaded, the state of this variable, the initial state of this variable is going to be 0, right? So now this one here is a function to actually update this state variable right here. So when this button is clicked here, we are having a variable right here called counter, and then we actually try to increase the value of this variable inside this counter right here, right? And then we use the use state right here. So we are setting the value that we've increased right here to this variable that we have gotten right here, which we are trying to display right here with our JavaScript syntax. So if you take note here, this one here is declared on top of our function, which is at the top level. So this one here cannot be called from inside a loop or inside a function, right? Or it cannot be called from a regular JavaScript. It can only be called in a React component, such as we are seeing here right now. So these are what hooks are used for. So like I said, as we move on in this course, we're going to explore some of those hooks. We are going to actually work with some of these hooks, and we are going to see how they work and what they are actually used for. In this video, we're going to take a look at React components. React components are the building blocks of React application. They are reusable, self-contained piece of code that define how a certain part of our user interface should appear or behave. And remember last time we said that React is a component-based architecture, right? So now when we talk about component, a component is actually an element or a piece, an element, or it's a self-contained element that actually, or maybe we can just say a self-contained piece of code, right, that define is a part of an application. Just like last time I show you a photo, right? We have the footer, we have the header, we have the sidebar, the search bar, and so on and so forth. So each of those components are actually self-contained because they contain all the pieces of code they need for them to execute completely. So anywhere they are needed, we just dump them right there. So that is what exactly React components are. So in React, there are two major types of components. So they are functional-based components and the class-based components. And this one here is the example of the functional-based components. So the functional-based component here, we have these are JavaScript functions that return JSX, which is the JSX we've seen in the past, right? And also they can accept props, which is input, and return React elements. Now, if you look right here, we have the functional. This one is a functional-based component. You can see right here, we have the function right here, and we have the greetings. So which means this component right here is a greeting component. It's a component designed for greetings. So which means anywhere in our project where we need to greet a user or greet anybody, so we just call this component from where it's been declared. We just import the component right there to actually do the job of greetings. So we don't need to we don't need to redefine any code of greetings in any other part. Every code that concerns greetings, anything that has to do with greetings has to be handled with this component separately. And the next one here is the class-based component. So here, the class-based component has ES6 classes that extend from React components. They have lifecycle methods and can hold local states. So right here we have, if you see here, we have the keyword class right here, and we have the greetings, as opposed to the first one we've seen that has the function keyword right here, right? So it has class greetings, and it extends the React component right here. So it extended this class right here to actually render the output for the user. And if you see right here, we see hello, right? And here we have this.props.name. Right, so this one is how we define this in class-based components. But if we go right here, if we go back to, let's go right here to back to our functional-based component. So this one right here we have the function greetings. So here we have props.name, right? So you can notice the difference right here, how they have been written, how they are written, right? And so let's quickly see some of the key features of a component. So right here we have some key features of a component. So components are reusable. So here we have components can be reused throughout the applications, promoting DRY, which is don't repeat yourself principle. So one of the beauty of working with React and working with component is that so they actually promote that principle which says do not repeat yourself, which means don't write a particular code, a block of code that is used more than one place. Don't write a code that is being used more than one place, right? So which means if a block of code is being used more than one place, then consider packaging that code as a separate component so that anytime that code, that block of a kind of functionality is needed, so you don't need to write it again. You just have to import that component right there to actually do it. So that is called do not repeat yourself, which is the dry principle. So this principle actually enhances maintainability, right? It helps our code to be maintainable. And also we have composition right here. So component actually encourage compositions. So we have component can be composed to build complex UIs. A component can include other components as children. So we can build one component and we can include other components inside that component as children. So that is composition, right? And the next one right here is state management. So components can manage their own state and receive state from their parent component through props. So just like I've seen last time, so component can actually manage their own state, right? Like the case last time when we saw, we declare a count variable, a count state variable, and a function to actually update the count. Then we have a use state hook to actually manage the state within that component. So that component actually has the ability to manage whatever that happens inside of it. So also they have lifecycle method. And here class components have lifecycle methods, right? So like we have the component did mount, component did update, and so on and so forth, that allow developers to run code at a specific point in the component life cycle, right? So these are some of the key features of a component. They are self-contained, which means they are self-contained, which is every code, every functionality that is needed for the component to function is actually contained inside that component, right? They can manage their own state and some other things that you can just see here on the screen. In this video, we're going to take a look at event handling in React. An event handler in React is a function that is called or executed in response to an event occurring in the user interface. Events can include user interactions such as click, key presses, mouse movements, form submissions, and so on and so forth. So events, just like you see right here, event is a kind of a function, maybe something is a function we predefine somewhere that is actually listening to an event that is, that if that function is attached or is bind to a component or to our JSX component that is actually waiting for an event to happen, then the function will execute. So for example, we can define a function like this that wants to handle an event. So whenever that event happens, so we're just going to do something inside the function. So right here we have the event binding. So like I said, so when a function is being defined, we define a function somewhere, or we define a series of instructions somewhere. Then we're going to bind that event we're going to bind that function to an event, right? So event handlers are typically bound to elements in JSX using camel case syntax. So just like I said, so when we declare a kind of event somewhere or a kind of function somewhere, so we're going to attach that function, we're going to bind that function to our JSX component using the camel case syntax. For example, right here we have an event. So we have this element right here, which is the button right here. And here we have created a kind of event that should happen when this button is clicked. So this one here is a kind of event listener. So we listen to the unclicked event, right? So when the button is clicked, then this function right here we've declared somewhere is going to be executed. And also we can pass arguments to an event. So we pass argument to an event by using the arrow function. So for example, if you take a look right here, this event has no function, we didn't pass any parameters or any arguments to this event right here. But the second one here, we are actually passing an argument down here. So when this button is being clicked, so we're going to call this function that we've created somewhere, then we're going to pass in the argument that is to be executed, or that's going to be part of the execution to this function right here. So now let's go to VS Code to see some examples of event handling. So this is VS Code, and this is our components that we have before, right? And right here we have a state variable. We have a state variable right here that is being controlled by this state hook, by this hook right here. And here we are actually returning some JXX elements. So in here we have a div, and inside this div we have a button. And now we have attached event handler to this button right here, right? So here we have a state variable right here, and we set the state variable, the initial value right here is 0. Then we have created a function to actually update this count whenever something happened. So now this is the event that we're actually listening to on this button right here. So we have attached event listener to listen to on click event on this button. So whenever this button is being clicked, then we're going to execute this function right here to actually update this variable. So now when this button is being clicked, then we're going to add 5 to the initial value of this variable right here. So in this case, when this button is clicked, we're going to add 5 to the initial value of this variable right here. And also, so this one here is a kind of is an event handler. It's an example of event handling, right? And also we can actually come down right here to declare another element that we're going to listen to an event in. So here I'm just going to say input. We can actually come here to define an input, right? And we're just going to say the type of this input, not actually hidden, it's going to be text. So I'm just going to say the type of this input is text, right? And then let's close it now. So now we just want to say, okay, when a mouse enters into this input, we're just going to display something in the console. So right here, we're just going to say on mouse entered. This one right here, you can see that we have a plethora of event right here. We can actually execute for this input text right here, right? So, but now we're just going to execute the on mouse enter. So when the mouse is entered inside this test field, then we're going to do something. So now I just want to say, okay, if a mouse is entered, we're going to log something to the console. So here we're going to say console logs, sorry. But this one right here, we're going to have the arrow function that we're just going to say console. We're going to say console.log. And in here, we're just going to say the text box. We're just going to say you have entered the text box. I'm just going to say text box entered text field. So I'm just going to say text field entered. Text field entered. So which means whenever we click on this, let me save. So whenever we click on this input, we're going to display this in the console. So let's go to our browser to actually check out this input, this output. So right here in our browser, we have gotten this right here. So we have gotten the text feed right here. So let's go to our console to see what happens when we actually enter inside the text feed. So let's go to our console. I'm going to clear this off. So now let's click on this. So right here we have text field entered. So if we go out and click on it again, go out and click on it again. So whenever we enter, whenever we click on this text field, so we're going to see this text actually displayed on the console. So we can basically do anything right here. We can display anything. We can decide to take any action. We can define any function somewhere to actually do something when this text field is being entered. So just like the same way this event is being handled right here to actually count whenever this click event when this click event happens. So coming back right here, this is the event we have been listening to on this button here, right? So now we are actually passing this function directly to our input. But another cleaner way we can actually do this, that actually is recommended, so we can actually come here to declare this function separately, right? So right here, I'm just going to enter this function right here, right, as suggested right here. So right here, we have another function being defined right here. So I'm just going to come here to, I'm going to just copy this button and go down right here. But this time around, we're not going to have this. I'm just going to remove this one. And then we're going to pass the handle, which is the function we declare up there. We're going to handle click. But meanwhile, we're going to remove this because we're not actually imputing anything right here, but rather we're going to just log this to the console, just like as you can see right here. We're going to log it to the console, right? Button clicked. So now we're going to put here, we're going to just say click me. Maybe we're just going to say click me. So now let's go to our browser and check this out. So right here in our browser, so here we have another button here called click me. So if we click on this count, it's going to be counting. Now, if we go here to click on click me, let me just remove this one right here. So let's click on this. So here we have button click, again button click, again button click. Then if we enter inside this text field, we're going to see text field entered, right? So these are examples of event handler in React. So right here in our components, so we've seen example on how to add event to an element, right? So we have the function directly added right here, and also we have it separated right here to get a cleaner way of doing it, right? And also this one too, we can actually, instead of doing this right here, we can still put it here, right? So let me just come here to say to declare another one. So I'm just going to say const, I'm going to say counter, right? So this one we're going to have, we're going to say count right here. So here we're just going to bring our arrow function and bring our curly braces. So here I'm just going to set count, and then we're just going to say count. Well, sorry. So I'm just going to say count plus, maybe just going to say count plus 2, right? And then we'll just come here to remove this one right here. So we're going to remove this one, and then we're going to say counter, right? So we're going to say counter, and then we're going to pass in the count argument up there. So let's save this and let's go back to our browser and check this out. So right here in our browser, let's refresh to have our initial state. So if we click right now, we have two, right? So here, everything is still working. Now, let's go back to VS Code. I will show you something. So right here, look at how we name our counter right here, which is our event right here. This one actually is not the recommended way of naming event handling, right? So you can see right here we have handle click. So it's recommended that we always put a kind of handle. We can actually prefix prefix it with handle and in camel casing, right? So this is the recommended way of naming event handler in React. So here we're just going to say handle this, right? And so this is the recommended way of naming event handling. So take note of this. So now if we go back again to our browser, we're going to see that everything is the same, right? Of course. So let's refresh this and let's click on our counter, and we'll see everything is still working as it's supposed to be. So now we have seen the basic example of event handling in React. And as we progress in this course, we're going to be working with event handling along the way, because this is we don't see multiple of this, and in different places where we're going to be working with event as we go along in the course. So I'm going to see you in the next video. All right, so in this video we're going to look at working with lists and keys in React. When working with React, managing lists and keys is very essential, because if these are well managed, it actually optimizes rendering and performance and ensuring that components behave as expected. You know, we know that list is a container that holds multiple objects, right? So every application in some point in time actually needs a list to save objects. And when this list is about to be displayed, or when we are trying to access data from that list, it's very important that we set keys to every item on that list, so that React can actually track every item on that list to actually know when such item is being updated or is being removed. So let's take a look at rendering a list in React. So to render a list of items in React, we typically use the map function to iterate through every items in the list to actually display it for the user. So here is a simple example of a list of a component that is actually trying to display a list on the browser. So if we take a look up here, we are actually passing a list of items as a prop. And coming down right here, we are trying to iterate through the list of items, right? So for every item right here, we are trying to set, we're trying to create a list item, which is a list for every item in that list, right? So right here, we can see that here we're actually trying to set the key, right? So here we're trying to set the key here. And here we are trying to take the real items, which is the name of the item that we want to display on the browser. So let's take a look at the importance of using keys. So what actually are keys? Keys are unique identifiers for elements in a list. They help React identify which items have been changed or have been added or have been removed. So as you can see right here, keys are very important, like we said in our previous a few minutes ago. So in the list, React actually use the key to identify each items in that list, so that when such an item is being modified, so React can actually track the modification of that item in the list. So why do we use keys? Why are they really important? What benefit do we have using keys? One benefit of using keys in React is that it optimizes rendering by minimizing the number of re-renders. So which means being that the keys are unique, so such an item will just be rendered once and be tracked by the key. So there's no point of duplicate rendering while using keys. So it actually improves performance. And also it promotes stability. So keys provide stability to components, ensuring that their state is preserved across renders. So here, using keys actually promotes stabilities to components. And now let's look at how the proper ways keys are to be used. So here we see that when we are working with keys, we should make sure that every keys are unique, right? So always use a unique value for the key. This is often an ID from your data. So ideally, the key of an item should be the ID of the data that we're actually trying to display on that page, on that list. And also, we should try to avoid using array indices. Now, why should we avoid array indices? Is because, so for a list that is changing dynamically, using the indices, using the index of array as a key can actually lead to some issues. So when we notice that the list can change dynamically, so we should avoid using the index of the array. Instead, we should use the ID of the item itself as a key. So let's look at a simple example of how keys should be used in React. So for example, right here, we have a component that is rendering a list of items right here. And now we are trying to set the key using the item, because now this item right here, so we are trying to iterate through the list of items. Now for each item inside this list, so we are trying to create a list item using the key, using the item ID as the key to that item. So this is the recommended way of using keys in React. So let's take a look at why we should try to avoid using indexes, array indices as keys. So using array indices can lead to issues when items are reordered or removed from the list. It is better to avoid it if the list can change dynamically, just like we've seen in one of our previous slides. So right here is an example of using index, the index of the array to display item. So right here we have the simple component and we have the list of items right here. So here we have the item and here we are trying to pass in the index of the array right here. And here in the list of the item, we're trying to set the index of the array to serve as the key to that item. And like we said, if the list is changed dynamically, so it can lead to some issues when working with the application. So it should be avoided by all means if we know that this list is a kind of list that will be changing dynamically. So it's better to avoid using the indices of the array as an ID to an item. So in this video, we're going to take a look at conditional rendering of elements in React. Conditional rendering is a key concept in many programming frameworks, particularly in JavaScript frameworks like React. It allows us to display elements based on certain conditions. So when we say rendering element conditionally, which means there are some conditions to be fulfilled before an element can be rendered. So in React, there are different ways to actually render element conditionally. So some of them we are going to see right here in the slide. One of the options to render an item conditionally is by using the if statement right here, which is the standard if right here. And here is a simple example of using the if. So here we have a props called is logged in. So now this component we want to check. The first thing we want to do here is to check if a user is logged in. So if the user is logged in, then we're going to return welcome back to the user. But if the user is not logged in, we just want to alert the user to sign up, right? So here we have two options. We have two situations right here to be fulfilled. So one of these return will be displayed to the user based on the condition of the user logged in, right? So if login is true, we return welcome back to the user. But if the user has not logged in, we just return this message to the user to actually sign up and log in. Now, example 2 is to use the ternary operator. So now we can rewrite this statement right here using a single line with the ternary operator. So here is the same component right here we try to render. So here we just if the user is logging, that if login is true, then we return this string right here. If not, we should return this one right here. So this one is exactly the same thing we have done here in number 1. It's exactly the same thing we are rewriting right here in number 2 using the ternary operator. So another way of rendering element conditionally in React is by using the logical AND operator, this one right here. So here is a simple example of using the AND operator. So right here we have a component called notification, and here we are passing in a message. So now in here we pass in the message to be rendered inside this paragraph, right? So now before this paragraph will be rendered, we just want to check if there's a message inside this variable. So now we just if there's a message here, then render the message inside this paragraph, then render this paragraph. So in the first place, if there is no message, this paragraph is not going to be rendered. So this paragraph will be rendered only if there's a message right here. And take note that using this pattern, we don't need to define the else part of this expression. You understand? So we just display this one right here is just like the if, only the if part we are displaying right here, no else, right? So that is just how this logical AND operator is being used in React. And another way is by using the switch statement. So the switch statement is preferable when we have more than 2 conditions to be rendered. So for example, right here we have 3 conditions right here. So we have the loading, we have the error, we have the success. So in this case now we just want to use the switch case to switch the status, right? So if the status of the application is, or if the status of the page is loading, then we just want to return this paragraph. But if the status, if there's any error, we want to return this one. But if it's success, then we want to return this right here. So using switch is preferable to use switch when we have more than 2 conditions to be tested, right? But if we have maybe just 2 conditions or maybe 1 or 2 conditions, it's better to use the if-else statement, right? So that is how, these are some of the ways elements are being rendered conditionally in React. In this video, we're going to take a look at styling React components. Styling React components can be done using various methods. So for us to add styling to React components, there are different ways to actually do that. So here we just want to see the few common ways on how to do it, which is the common way we use from time to time. That is what we want to see in this video. So the first one right here is using the CSS style sheet. So here we can define, we can create a file, for example, like styles.css. And now we declare CSS classes inside that file, and we declare everything we want in each class. Then we come back to the component right here. So this one here is a component called button, right? And so here we just need to do is to import the CSS file right here in this button component, and then we're going to apply the class name, which is the class we've declared right here, to this button element here in the component. So this is the popular way of one of the popular and the clean way of actually styling a React component. Another one is to use the inline styling. Now the inline styling, you can see right here, this one here is the component, is the button component. And here we are trying to declare our style directly as an object right here in our component. And then we just add the style to our button element right here, right? So here we define a variable called button style, and then we define all the properties we want the button to have right in here. And we just come here to add it as a style to the button right here. So this is another way to style React components or React elements. Another way is by using the CSS modules. So here we can see we declare a button module. So look at the naming convention right here. So we create a file called button.modules.css, and we define everything right in here, and then we'll come back to the component to actually get it imported. And then we just use, so here we can access every classes in that module using this style right here. So here we have styles.button, and we can create other elements or other controls and just declare the style in here and access it by using this style to just call the class from the module. And this one right here actually has a kind of advantage, one advantage. Now, like this one, for example, you can see that this style right here can only affect this component. Right, it can only affect this component. So whatever we put right here, we come here to import it. So this one actually gives a clear, a kind of clear separation of concern. Like, so when we just look at this, actually it gives us a kind of easy access to maintain CSS while working with a large application that has multiple classes or multiple components to be maintained when we have a problem with CSS. So for example, if we have classes, for example, multiple components for our, in our application, and we name their CSS classes as according to their component. So for example, if anything happens, or maybe if we want to modify any style with this button right here, so instead of us going to the general stylesheet.css file to look for the button, we can just come here to open this file, because we know that everything concerning this button is declared right in here, right? So it's easier for us to actually go inside the button, this button module, to actually edit any style we want to edit. So actually, it gives a kind of fast maintainability when working with CSS with components. So these are some of the ways that we can actually style components in React. Though there are some other ways that we are not going to go into right now, because there are some other third-party libraries that are used as well. But these three we've shown these are the common ways of styling React component while working with React. All right, so in this video, it's time for us to create a small project to actually test all the knowledge we have acquired up to this stage. So what I'm just going to do right here, remember this is the folder we created last time, and this is the demo app we've created last time, right? So inside the same folder, I'm going to create the same app. So what I'm just going to do right here, using Windows, I'm just going to press down the Control key and the back tick to open the terminal. And I'm going to actually I'm going to remove this. So let's just have this one right here. So let's clear this off. I'm going to clear this off. So now we're going to create a simple project using Vite, just like we did in some of our previous videos, right? So here I'm going to say npm create Vite at latest. So here we're going to give the name of the app as so we're going to say to do app. And here we're going to choose React. And we're going to choose JavaScript. So now let's follow the instructions and actually get our app created. So we're going to run npm install to actually install our dependencies. So let's wait a while our project is while our dependencies is being installed. All right, so our dependencies are finished installing. So the next one is to run npm run dev to actually get our app started. So right here, we see our app has started and it's running at 5173. So let's follow this link to actually view our app on the browser. All right, so right here, we see that our new app is being created and it's running successfully. All right, so now we see that our project is up and running successfully. So let's go back to VS Code. So right here on VS Code, I'm just going to, let's remove this for a moment. And so let's open up our project. So this is our to-do app. So let's open it up. So here, this is our app.jsx. So what I'm just going to do, I'm just going to clear off everything within the fragment. So let's remove everything from here. And the next thing we're going to do here is to, let's just quickly bring out something. Let's just quickly display something on the browser, right? So I'm going to have a div. And inside this div, we're going to have the h2 tag. We're just going to say welcome. Actually, this to do welcome to the to-do app. And so let's go to the browser. So right here we have welcome to the to-do app, right? So here I'm just going to leave our CSS. Let's go back right here. So this is our CSS file. So remember last time, this is the main file that is handling our CSS. So every CSS we put right here is going to affect the whole of the application. But any CSS we put right here is going to affect only this component right here, right? So that is the difference between these two files right here, as we've seen last time. So what I'm just going to do, I'm going to leave everything right here as it is. I'm not going to change anything because we're not going to go into CSS in this for now. So I'm just going to leave the predefined CSS right here that we're just going to work with. So now let's close this. So what we're just going to do right here, we're going to create our first component. So I'm going to right click on this source folder right here, this source folder. Then I'm going to create, actually I'm just going to click on it. And here I'm going to create a folder called component, right? And inside this component, we're going to create one component called to do. So inside this folder, I'm just going to click on this folder and create a new component right here. So this one I'm going to call it to do. .jsx. And now we're going to generate our application. So we're going to say ROAFC and generate this application. And now here we're just going to come here to say welcome to. Let's have another H2 tag right here. So we're going to say welcome. So we're going to say welcome from the to-do component right here. And then what we're just going to do right here is to come here to import. So I'm going to import that component, the to-do component right here. So I'm going to have here, I'm going to say to-do. Yeah, this one right here, this is our to-do component, and I'm going to close it. So here we see that it's been auto-imported right here. So let's go to our browser and check this out. So right here in our browser, we have welcome to the to-do app from the app component, and here we have welcome from the to-do component. So right here, our to-do component is currently inside this app component. That's why we're able to actually render it right here. So right here, we have created our to-do component, and we have actually included inside our app component. So now I'm going to remove this state variable from this app component. And so let's actually save this to have a good format. So also I'm going to remove all these ones we are not using right now. Just remove them all. Okay, so our app here is ready. So let's close this app component, and so let's go back to the to-do app. So right here is our to-do component. So what I'm just going to do right here, we're going to come right here to bring in some state variables. So what we're just going to be having in this, that's the functionalities we're going to be having in this to-do app, is just a simple to-do CRUD operation. So we're going to add to-do, we're going to remove to-do, and we're going to edit to-do. So that's just operations we're going to have right here. So let's bring in some state variables to actually handle some data for us. So right here we have a state variable, and so this one is our state variable, and this is the function to actually update this variable. Then we're going to use a hook called useState to actually manage the state of this to-do's state variable. So the initial state, we're going to set it to empty array. So we're going to set the initial state to empty array. And also, we're going to come down right here to have another state variable. So here we're going to set input and set input value. And I'm just going to remove this. Let's be consistent. So let's save. So the next one we're going to do is the one we're going to bring the state variable for the edit. I'm going to say const. So I'm going to say edit to do. I'm just going to say edit index. Then I'm going to say set edit index to null. So what we just did right here, so remember this was our state variables right here. So we're trying to manage the state of this component locally, right? So right here we have the three state variables right here. So we have the to-do. So this one is the to-do array that's going to hold all the list of to-dos. And this one right here is the input, which is going to be the input field that we're going to create to actually allow the user to enter to-do and edit to-do. And this one right here is the state variable that is going to track the index of the edited to-do that we're going to be editing, right? So these are the three state variables we're going to be having right here. All right, so now we're going to bring in the function that we actually add a new to-do. But meanwhile, there's something I want to do right here. I want to want a kind of input value. I just want to make the name clearer. So what we just want to do right here is that we're going to use one text field, which is one text box, to actually add a new to-do, and the same text box to edit existing to-do, right? So this function we're going to bring right here is going to check for both new to-do and existing to-do. So I'm going to say const handle to do. So the first thing we're going to do right here is to check if, I'm just going to tab this in. So the first thing is to check if the user actually enters something in the text field. But meanwhile, I'm going to make sure I just guide against white space. So let's say .trim. So here, I just want to make sure we trim it so that we just get against white space, right? So if the user has not entered anything, we're just going to return. And after this one, now we're going to check if the user is trying to enter a new to do or is trying to edit the existing to do. So you're going to say if what is the name of this? Okay, edit index. So if edit index not equal none, equals to this.map. Index So I'm going to explain to you when I'm done with what I'm doing. Completed. So I'm going to break this down. Else display to do. Then after this, now we're just going to come down. So we're going to say set to do's to the updated to do's. Then we're going to set the index. And this one, actually, we're going to set it to none. Else. Set to do's. So now let's take a quick rundown of what I've done right here. So here we are trying to use one text field to add a new to-do and to update the existing to-do. So the first one we did right here is to check if the text field actually contains a value, or maybe the user just put a white space. So we're just going to try to trim it to make sure we are not mistaking white space as input. So now if this condition fails, or if this condition is true, then we're going to return, right? We're going to return because the user has not entered anything. But if that is not the case, we're going to check if the to-do, if the text that is entered inside the text field consists of index. If there's index, it means that to-do is already in existence, right? So for that, now we're just going to iterate through the existing to-dos, which is this one right here. So we're going to iterate through the list of to-do using the map. And then for each to-do right here, we're going to compare the index of that to-do with the index, because it's an array, right? So we're going to compare the index of that to-do with the index of the array, right? And then if the index matches, then we're going to just set the value of the text field. We're going to set the value of the text field, and we're going to set the complete flag right here. This one is actually completed. So we're just going to set a flag right here to show that I'm just going to set the complete fault right here. So if that is not the case, we're going to preserve, or we're going to keep the original to do right here. And after that, now we're going to set the to-dos. That we're going to just set the to-dos to updated to-do, which is the to-do we've updated, and then we're going to set the index to false. But if that is not the case, we're going to set the original to-do as it is, right? So now what we just did right here is we're trying to use a single function or a single text box to actually add a new to-do and update the existing to-do. So that is the function we just declared right here. So the next function we're going to bring right here is the one to actually delete the to-do. So I'll say const handle delete. So right here, I'm just going to tap in the suggestion on the screen. So what we did right here is that, so this one right here, we take the index of the to-do we want to edit. And here we created a variable called updated to-dos. And now we iterate. We try to iterate through the list of to-dos right here and filter. So now we check the index. So we just try to check the index of all the to-dos in there, right? Then if here, let me give it a space right here. So right here, we just try to compare the index of the to-do with this index right here of the to-do that is deleted. So now, if any index matches the index we have right here, if any index inside this to-do matches the index right here, then we're just going to filter that index out. So which means we're going to delete that to-do from the list. And then we're going to set the to-do to the updated list of to-dos right here, which is this list right here, right? So this one right here is the list of to-dos, right? This one right here. So we'll try to filter all the to-dos that we have in the array inside here, right? And then we'll check for every to-do we are checking right here. We are checking the index. So if that index is equal to the index, then we're just going to remove it out from here. And then we're going to put the remaining to-dos in here. Then after that, now we're just going to set the to-dos to the filtered to-dos. So we remove the one that is deleted. So this is just all we need to get a to-do deleted from the list. So the next one we're going to do right here is we're going to initiate the function. We're going to bring in a function that is going to initiate the to-do to be edited. So we'll have const handle. And if you take a look carefully, you see that we're always prefacing the functions right here as handle, because this one's right here, we're going to set them as event list, as event handler later, just like we've seen in our presentation, right? So this one's actually their event handler that we are just trying to create right here, so that when they just try to listen to a certain event, which is like click event. So when a button is being clicked, we're going to trigger all these events that we are declaring right here, we're defining right here. So this one, we're just going to say handle edit. Handle edit to do. Then we're going to pass the index right here, which is the index of the to do to be deleted, to be updated. And in here, we're just going to set the value. We're going to say set the input value. So you're going to have to do's. To do's. Then we're going to have the index of that to do's, right? Of that to do index. So we're going to say that's the text. And then we're going to set the edited index to this index. So what we just did right here is that, so when that button is being clicked, so we're going to set the to do that it was clicked as the text of this one right here. So we're just going to set it through the index. We're going to find the index of that to do. Then we're going to set the text of that to do to the text field, right? So we're going to set the edited index to this index right here, which is this state variable we have up right here. So that's just all we need to do to initiate the to do to be edited. So the next function we're going to create right here is the one to actually strike out a completed to do. So when a to do is being completed, so we're going to strike out that to do, right? So that is the function we're going to bring in right here. So here I'm going to say const toggle, So we're going to say toggle completed. Index. So right here we have, okay. So there's a suggestion right here on my screen. I'm sorry, it's my IntelliJ that is actually doing some caches for me right here. Oh, sorry, not IntelliJ. It's my VS Code that is doing some caches for me right here. So I'm just going to type this in and explain what exactly we're trying to do, because this is exactly what we're trying to do. So to save our time, I'm just going to type it in so we can explain exactly what is happening right here. All right. So let me remove the extra curly braces. So now what we just did right here is that, so we're trying to check for a to-do that has been completed, right? So when that to-do has been completed, so we're just going to click on it to strike it off, right? So now we're just okay. Here we have the index of the array, because they are inside array, right? So now what we just did right here, we created a variable called updated to-dos. Then we try to map all the to-dos in our list, map over. We're going to iterate through the to-dos in our list. So for each to-do right here, we're going to take the index of the array, right? So now we're going to compare that array index with the index of the to-do that we clicked. So right here, we're not actually working with keys right here, but we are working with index, because this one right here is just to trace the position of that to-do inside the array, right? So here we take the index and compare. So if this index of the to-do, if the index of this to-do is equal to this index right here, then we're just going to display, we're just going to toggle the to-do, right? So for example, this toggle right here, we're going to see here, we just say completed equals not to-do.completed. So this one is to toggle, which means when we click on the to-do, it's going to be struck off. When we click on it again, the strike is going to remove. So we just try to control the state of the to-do right here we're just going to toggle the state of the to-do by this statement right here. But if that is not the case, we're just going to return all the to-dos. That's just going to return the original to-do, right? Okay, so now after that, now we're just going to set the to-dos to the updated to-dos right here. So it's just all we need to do right here. So now we're having all of our functions completed. So in our next video, we're going to implement the return body of our application. All right, so in this video, we're going to start implementing the return body of our to-do app. So I'm just going to remove this from, or maybe I'm just going to leave it, but maybe I'm just going to, okay, so I'm going to say welcome to, or maybe I'm just going to change the message. So I'm going just going to say the to-do application. And meanwhile, I'm going to change this one to maybe H1. So I'm going to set some inline styles right here. Now, when setting an inline style in React, you see right here, so we have to have it as 2 curly braces. Now, because now this one right here, this is the major curly braces right here. Then inside these curly braces, we're going to have the object. So we set the style as object while doing the inline style. So right here now, I'm going to set this one like padding, and then I'm going to set the value. So I'm going to say 20 pixel. This one actually is going to be inside curly braces. Sorry, double quotes. So I'm going to say 20 pixels. So if you look right here, we have this one right here. So this is the main. This is the main curly braces. Then inside the curly braces, we have an object. So we can have multiple objects right in here inside the curly braces, with each of them set as key and value, right? Okay, so the next thing we're going to do, I'm going to go down below the title. So quickly we're going to bring in an input. All right, man, this one is nice. I'm going to tab this in. I will be tempted to tab it in. So here is that we just bring in an input control, right? And here we set the value to the input value we have up there. This one right here, and then we set the onChange to actually set this one to 100. But meanwhile, I'm going to extract this function in a moment. We'll come back to it in a moment. This one right here is the placeholder, right? There's the placeholder right here. So what I want to do right here is I want us to make this one as clean, to make our control as clean as possible. So I'm going to extract this function from here. So I'm going to go up right here to actually set the onChange. So here I'm going to say const handle input change. And so here we're just going to set the value to e.target.value. And then we're just going to come down right here to remove this one. And then we're going to handle input change. All right, so that's just all we need to do right here. Then after that, now I'm going to come down here to bring in a button. So here we're going to say, yeah, actually this button on click will handle to do. I'm just going to tab this in, but there are some modifications I want to do right here. So right here is a button. So when this button is clicked, we're just going to handle attributes. Now, look at this one right here. So this one is just the click event. We are actually handled this event handler. So here, this is just the kind of the event we've created right here. So now we'll try to attach this event to this button right here, so that we'll try to listen to the on-click event. So when the button is clicked, so we're going to execute the event we'll define up there. But being that we're going to use the same control to add and edit, so we're just going to toggle, we're just going to conditionally, we're going to render some text right here conditionally, right? So now we're going to check the edit index. So if the edit index we define up there is equal none, so which means we want to add a new to do. But if the index is not none, it means we want to update to do, right? So we're going to display the text on the button based on the condition of this edit index right here. So for that, now I'm just going to tab in the suggestion on the screen. I'm going to remove the last one right here. So this one right here, we're just trying to do conditional rendering right here, just like we've seen in our presentation, right? So here, I'm just going to say add to do. And this I'm going to say update to do. Right. So if this index has a value, which means the to do is already in existence, which means we'll try to edit. Right. So we're going to show this one right here. But if it is none, we're going to show this one right here, which means we try to add a new to do. So this is just all we need to do right here. So let's save this. So now before we go further, let's actually go to the browser to view our attributes. Okay, so right here we have the text box and we have the button right here, right? So now I'm going to, let's check what is happening right here. So coming back right here, so this is the title, where the title, yeah, the to-do application. I'm just going to make this one maybe H3, right? And also I'm going to, let's go back to our app component, this one. So I'm going to remove this one right here. Just going to remove this one right here. So let's go back right here. So let's check out again in our browser. Okay, so now we have the to-do application and we have the text field right here and we have the button to actually add to do, right? So now let's go back to implement the attributes. So now I'm going to scroll down here. So now we're going to come right here to bring in the UL. And in here, we're going to iterate through the list of the to-dos we have right here to actually get them displayed. So here I'm just going to say to-dos. .map. Now for every to-do, we're going to, here, we're just going to create the list right here. So we're going to have the list item. So I'm going to have the key. Then here we're going to say to do. And you know, right here, we're not actually having ID for this to do. So we're just going to use the index right here, because this one we're doing right here, just a demo. We don't have the ID. So here we're just going to say index. So we're going to work with the array index, right? So we're going to say index. And here we're going to pass in the to-do itself. To do. But meanwhile, we're just going to say the text. to Redux text. So let's save. Now the reason why we're using this one right here, because now this are to do, we're not going to have an ID. So we're going to use the index of the array to serve as the key of this item right here. So before we move on, let's go to the browser to actually test this out to see how it works. So now I'm going to say 1 and let's enter. So right here we have 1, 2, 3. Okay, so right here we see that we can actually enter items right now. So the next thing we're going to do, we're going to go and bring in the buttons to actually edit or remove a to-do. So let's go back to VS Code. So now I'm just going to go inside here. Then we're going to bring in 2 buttons right in here. But meanwhile, we're going to put these 2 buttons inside the div. So we're going to have button. Then we're going to have the click event, which is on click. So when this button is clicked, we're going to pass in. So this one, we're going to say this one is the one to actually edit, right? So let's put it. So this one is edit. So we're going to handle So here we're going to handle edit to do. This one right here. And we're going to pass it the index of the to-do we want to handle. We want to edit. And the same thing goes to this second one right here. I'm just going to duplicate and so this one I'm going to say delete. And here we're going to handle delete. Okay, so let's save. So right here we have a button to edit and a button to delete. So let's go back to the browser and check this out for a moment. Okay. So we're actually having this. Let's push another one. 2 right here. And now let's try to edit the 2. Okay, so here we edit 2. 2 and edit. Sorry, 2. Sorry. And let's update. So now you can see here we have the add to do, right? But if we say we click on edit, so here we have this text has changed to update. So this is the conditional rendering we're actually using right here. So now let's say T again and update. So this is conditional rendering in action right here. So now we have seen that our to do, we can add to do, we can edit to do. So let's delete the to do. So the delete is still working. So now everything is working. So let's go back to VS Code to actually do our component styling, to actually style our component so that our app will look a little more beautiful, right? So let's go back right there. All right, so coming back here, we're going to start styling our component. So for us to do that, the first thing we're going to do right here is to install Bootstrap so that we can actually have some free style sheets to style our component. So then now I'm going to open our terminal. And so here we're going to install the Bootstrap library. I'm going to say npm install. We're going to say npm install Bootstrap. Okay, so Bootstrap has been installed. So let's remove this and let's confirm this from our package.json. All right, so here we see that Bootstrap has been installed for us. So you can see that the Bootstrap was installed in this section of dependencies. So which means Bootstrap is going to production with our application to actually maintain the style, right? Okay, so now let's close this down. And so this time around, what I just want to do right here, I'm going to open this app.css. Meanwhile, I just want to delete it. Let me just delete it. And so let's go here and remove the import. So the next thing we're going to do here is to, let's open our main.jsx. So we're going to do the import right here. We're going to import Bootstrap right here. So we'll say import. So I'm going to say Bootstrap. This one is slash distribute CSS, then slash Bootstrap, right? Okay, so now we're just going to take this like this. So let's go back to the browser and see if there's any changes in our component. Okay, so so here we see that there is changes right here. So what I'm just going to do, let's go back to VS Code. So let's open up our index.css. So right now I'm going to remove all these ones. We don't need this one anymore. Just going to remove all these styles. And also I'm going to remove this one. All right, so meanwhile, there's something I just want to do right here. I'm going to go right here. Let's go back to our browser. So this is our browser here. Okay, so now we have this here. So let's go and start styling our component. So now I'm going to so here we have gotten our Bootstrap right here, right? So we don't need anything here anymore. So I'm going to close this, and also let's just let it open. So let's actually go here to start styling our component. So the first thing we're going to do is to remove this one. I'm going to remove this one from here. I want to change this to main. Set the class name. So I'm going to set this class name to container. And then we're going to have set margin top to 5. And we're going to set padding 5 too. And after done this now, we're going to get a div right here. Test center. And before. And this one too, I'm going to, okay, so this one is okay like that. So now this input here, we're going to come here to say this one. So we'll set the class name. We'll say form control, right? And meanwhile, this one, what is it? So this one right here. So we're going to have these two. Let me just give some space. So we're going to have this to control. We're going to set this to control the button and this one, this input right here to become input group. So I'm going to have a div right here. And why is my computer making noise? Okay, so I'm going to save. So now I'm going to come here to just cut this one, and I'm going to go here to bring it in. So the first one right here, we're going to set some classes. Class name. I'm going to set it to row. Justify content center. So here we're going to say column. MD6. And then this one here, we're going to say this one is input group. So we're going to say input. So here we're going to have the margin bottom to, I'm just going to set this to 4. Okay, I think let's go back to the browser to see this output. Okay, right here we see the form is looking a little bit beautiful. Okay, so now let's go and let's keep on styling. Let's keep on styling. So here is the button. So what I'm just going to do right here, I'm going to say this button here. I'm going to set a class name to this button. btn success. So it will be green. And so this one here, I'm going to wait. Let's check it out. Okay, this one is green already. So the next one here, we're going to come here to style the output. And also we're going to set the width. So we're going to have the inline style right here. So I'm going to set the mask width. So this one I'm going to set it to 600 pixels. And so having done this now, let's come here. I'm going to set some classes right here as well. So this one is list. List group items. And we're going to use the flex box right here. So we're going to say the flex. Justify content between. And I think this is just all we need right here. So the next thing, we're going to come to this button right here to set some classes for them. So here's a class name. So this one is the button to edit. So this one is going to be warning. So let's say btn. So we're going to say warning. And also we're going to make it small. So let's say btn. So we're going to say btn small. SM. And I'm going to copy this one. Just going to copy this one. Come here and put it here. But this one is delete. This one is delete, right? So this one is going to be danger. to set this one to danger. All right, so let's go back to the browser to check out the attributes. Okay, okay, so it's showing, but meanwhile, let's go and do some more other settings. So here we have our div. We have, okay, there's the div that is controlling the buttons. So let's check it out. Okay, so okay, let's go back to VS Code. So here we have list group item, justify, okay. We have to put hyphen right here, put the dash right here. And after that, now we're going to come back right here to space the buttons. So I'm just going to come here to say M. I'm going to space this to 2. So let's go back. Okay, so let's enter another one. Let's say 2. Okay, so let's try to edit. So we'll see that let's say 2 right, 2 so it's working. And let's try to delete. Okay, edit. So you see that here we're actually having, if it is editing, it's going to change to update. Now we're going to change to add, change to update, right? So we see that everything is actually working smoothly. Now the next thing we're going to do right here is we're going to define the cancel. So when this to do is done, we're just going to click it to strike it out, right? So that is the remaining one. So let's go back to VS Code and actually get it completed. So now we're going to scroll down here, and so this is our list item. So here I'm going to bring in a span. Let's span this. So let's move our text, cut it and put it in there. So here we're going to set on click event right here. So when it's clicked, we're just going to, there's a method we declare up there. So we're just going to bring it out here. So we're going to say toggle completed. And I'm going to pass in the index. Now the next one we're going to do here is to set the style. Now this, sorry, okay, Control Z, okay. So the style right here is going to depend on the complete status of our to-do. Now that brings me back to this flag I put here last time. So the reason why I put this flag right here, so we can use it to toggle the off, the strike and off of the to-do. So when this one is set to true, which means the to-do has been completed, so we're going to strike it off. So if it is set to off, it's not completed. So that is why I put this flag right here just for us to manipulate the data, right? So this one actually is complete. So this one is completed, so it's completed. So now I'm going to go down right here. I hope everything is complete, is correct. So that let's go down right here. So what I'm just going to do here is to here. So we're going to set the text decoration based on the status of the completed flag. So we'll set text decoration that we're going to have to do. So if to do dot is completed, if that is completed, then we're going to so we're going to put in the strike. So we're going to just say line line through. But if that is not the case, we're just going to say none. And after this, now we're going to set the cursor actually. So we'll set the cursor to pointer. Okay. Is that it? Let me Ctrl Z. Having a kind of problem right here. Okay. So we'll say pointer. Yeah. So let's save this. So here, this just, I think this one should work right now. Let's go up right there to actually check this out. Okay, so this is the method we define right here, the function. So we just try to say, okay, if this one is so text decoration, if this one is true, then if this clicked, right? So if it's true, then we just strike it true, but if no, we just leave it to none. So let's go to the browser to test it out. This video is becoming very long. So let's see. Okay, good. So now we can strike and click on it again. So I don't want this video to be too long. Let's stop this video right here. Let's move to the next video to actually do the cleanup of this project. So see you there. Okay, so coming back here, we're just going to give our system a final test. So here I'm going to enter some to-dos. Clean the room. For 4 hours. Go to the mall. Go swimming. So we can see that we can actually enter, so that we can add, and also we can, let's edit this one for 2 hours. So here we see that we can actually update, and so let's say this one is completed, this one is completed, this one is completed, and this one is not completed. It's not yet completed, right? And also we can actually delete, right? We can delete. So now we see that our application is working. So we've actually put the knowledge we have gotten in some of our previous video into test right here, and we see that everything is actually working. So you can actually build more on this, you can study it more and actually master this. Then I'm going to see you in the next section. All right, so in the rest of this section, we're going to start working at the front end, and also at the same time transitioning between the back end and the front end when it need be. So before we start working at the front end, I just want to take a quick check at our front end environment, the dev environment. So make sure you have Node.js already installed, and you have some text editors or some IDEs being installed on your machine. So for example, if you have IntelliJ running on your machine, you can actually develop React application from IntelliJ as well. And my favorite for front end is VS Code right here. So you can just install this VS Code, just like, you know, in some of our introduction videos last time, we have gone through the installation processes of all this, right? So in case you missed that video, you can just go back to the introduction or to this course where you are going to see how I actually guide step by step on how to get all these ones installed. So at this point, make sure you have gotten Node.js installed on your machine. You've gotten because the moment you have Node.js installed and VS Code installed, then automatically you have React ready to be developed on your machine, right? So here is WebStorm. WebStorm is another IntelliJ nice product for JavaScript development. It's a very good idea. I used to use this some times ago before I switched to VS Code, because VS Code is actually free and with a lot of with extensive extension, right? A lot of plugins that we can actually use with VS Code. So VS Code is one of the favorite IDE or one of the favorite text editors for developers right now when it comes to front-end development. So you can actually get all this installed. Make sure you have Node.js installed and one of these installed on your machine, then you are good to go. So guys, let's dive into the front-end development properly. So see you there. In this video, we're going to take a quick look at Redux Toolkit. So what exactly is Redux Toolkit? Redux Toolkit is a library designed to simplify the process of working with Redux. And Redux is the state management library for JavaScript applications. So now we can see that this Redux Toolkit right here is just a simple library that is designed to simplify the process of working with this Redux right here. And Redux itself is a management library for JavaScript applications, right? So just like, for example, when we are working with Spring Framework, so working with the core Spring Framework is very tedious if we are not working with Spring Boot. But when Spring Boot came out, Spring Boot actually simplified the process of working with Spring Framework. So the same thing is happening right here with Redux Toolkit and Redux itself. So working with Redux itself could be so tedious because there's a lot of boilerplate code to write to actually get our job done. But when Redux Toolkit was designed, it actually simplified the process of working with Redux itself. So currently, the recommended way of working with Redux is actually working through Redux Toolkit. And so Redux Toolkit actually provides a set of tools and best practices to help developers write Redux applications more effectively or efficiently with a drastic reduction of boilerplate code. So that is the function of Redux Toolkit. So in case you are not familiar with Redux, so right here is Redux. So Redux is the JavaScript library that helps manage an application state globally. So if you want to know about Redux, you can just follow this link that I've shown in right here. So I found this blog useful when learning Redux. So I just decided to bring the link so that I can use it to actually to introduce that blog to you guys. So that if you want to know about Redux, you can actually go to this link right here to read about Redux. But I quickly want to say this, you don't really need to know Redux before working with Redux Toolkit. So you can just learn Redux Toolkit directly without having to know about Redux, right? So it's a very simple library to learn. And now let's look about some of the core concepts of working with Redux Toolkit. So that's the concept we're supposed to have if we want to work with Redux Toolkit. So one here is state. So the state is the single source of truth of an application. It holds all the data that your application needs to function. So that is a state. So just like last time when we were doing a demo application, we created a variable called, when I call it count, right? And that count is actually a state variable that we are actually managing through the application. But if there is any data in that component that is to be used in other several components in our project, then we need to move that state management to Redux Toolkit for it to be managed globally. So another thing to know about is actions. So actions are plain JavaScript objects that describe changes to the state of an application, right? So each action must have a type property that indicates what kind of action it is. So for example, here's a piece of code that actually defines an action called increment right here. So here we have this one right here is the slice. We're going to see slice in a moment. So right here is the counter slice, and inside the counter slice, there's an action called increment. that when a static button is being clicked, so the current value of the current value right there is going to be incremented by any predefined number. Now let's take a quick look at slice. So what are slice? A slice is a collection of Redux logic, state actions, and reducers for a specific feature of your application that helps organize code better. So now we see that a slice represents a fixture, a particular fixture in the application. So for every fixture of our application, we need to create a slice to represent that fixture. And that slice, that file contains everything that needs to be done, which is the state of that fixture, the actions, and reducers to actually update that fixture, right? So that is what a slice stands for, of which we are going to see how it works in a moment. So right here we have a fixture called increment right here, and that increment, for that increment right now, we create a slice called counter. So this counter right here actually represents the name of a slice, of which inside that slice a function is declared or an action is declared inside the slice called increment. So the name of that action is called increment, and that increment is found in the counter slice. So we are going to implement everything in some of our upcoming videos that we're actually going to see how all this works perfectly. So now to create a slice, we use a predefined a function that is provided by Redux Toolkit. So you have the create slice function, which helps to create a slice of state along with the corresponding actions and reducers in a single step. So if we want to create a slice, we're just going to use this function right here to actually create a slice, of which we are going to see later. So another concept of working with Redux Toolkit are reducers, just like we mentioned in a few minutes ago. So right here we have something called reducer. Now reducers are pure functions that take the current state of an application as argument and return a new state. They specify how the state should change in response to an action. So reducers do not mutate the state directly. Instead, they create a new state object based on the current state and actions. So these are reducers. So for example, we saw a function called increment, right? Which is that is an action called increment. So that increment can be declared as a reducer, right? So now that reducer actually has the action right there, and so you can see right here, so they are pure functions, right? And they take the current state. So for example, in the case of that increment, so that increment is going to take the current state. For example, if the count variable is 10, so it's going to take the current state of that 10, of that state variable, which is 10, and then is going to increment that state variable that's going to change the state of that variable to a new state. So when a button is being clicked, the state of that variable is going to be, which is that variable is going to be added. A value is going to be added to that 10, which is a predefined value is going to be added to that 10. And now the reducer is going to return the new state of that counter, which is maybe if we said, okay, when a button is clicked, that 10 should be added to, which means the reducer is going to return a new state with a count of 12, right? So, and also, as we see right here, they specify how state should change in response of an action, right? So we are going to actually see these ones are just theory that might sound so too abstract right now, but when we're going to start working with Redux Toolkit, you're going to actually see how this works practically. So another concept to look at for is this dispatch. So dispatch is a function that sends an action to Redux store. It is how you trigger changes to the state. When you call dispatch and include the action, the Redux store runs the reducer function with the current state and then dispatch the action to produce a new state. So for example, last time we created an action called increment. So if we want to call the increment from the component, from any component in our application, what we just need to do is to use the dispatch function to actually dispatch that action. So that is how it works. So like I said, again, we're going to see how this works when we're going to start implementation of Redux Toolkit. So another thing we're going to look at right here is how to handle asynchronous logic. So asynchronous actions handling. So Redux Toolkit provides a function right here called create async tongue, which simplifies the process of handling asynchronous actions, such as calling APIs. So when we dispatch an action, the Redux store runs the reducer, just like we've seen. He runs the reducer function with the current state, the dispatch action to produce a new state. So now, for us to make API calls to our backend, there's a function we need to use here called create async tongue. So these are some of the core concepts we just need to know for us to work with Redux Toolkit. So here, the asynchronous logic or the asynchronous call actually has a life cycle, right? So below right here are the life cycle actions when we make a synchronous call to our backend. So here we have pending, we have fulfilled, and we have reject. So pending indicates that the call is in progress, which is the operation is in progress. Fulfilled means the operation is successful, right? It's completed successfully. But reject indicates that the operation failed. There's an error from the back end. So these are the three states we have when making a synchronous call with Redux Toolkit, of which we are going to see later. So here is a simple example of counter slice. So right here, we see we are importing a function. We created a file called counterslice.js, right? And so now we're importing the function right here called createSlice from the Redux Toolkit. And here we have, you see the name of the function of the slice right here. It's called counterslice. And now we're actually calling this function right here, which is createSlice. And then inside the slice, inside this createSlice function, we are specifying the name of our slice, which is the counter, just like we saw last time. So the initial state of the counter is 0. And here we have 3 reducers inside this slice right here. So one is increment, one is decrement, and one is reset, right? So now you can see that when this button, for example, there's a button somewhere, there's a plus button somewhere. So when this plus button is being clicked, so right here we have a predefined value to actually increment the counter width, which is the variable width. So for example, when the plus button is being clicked, that count variable is going to be incremented by 1. And the same thing goes to the decrement, and the same thing goes to the reset. So when the reset button is being clicked, it's going to reset the state to 0. So this one is a typical example of creating a slice, of which we are going to see plenty of this in future, because throughout our application, we are going to be working with the Redux Toolkit. So I believe by the end of this course, you are going to have a solid knowledge and understanding of working with Redux Toolkit. So don't bother about this code right now, because we are going to see this a lot in some of our futures upcoming videos. So in summary, we see that Redux Toolkit streamlines the process of managing state in Redux applications by providing a clear structure and reducing boilerplate code. By understanding this concept like state, actions, and reducers, and dispatch, you can effectively manage application state in more organized and efficient manner. So utilizing features like slice and async tongue allows for better code organization and handling complex state management scenarios in JavaScript applications. So this is just a quick overview of Redux Toolkit. So we don't need to go too deep. We don't need to write code here now, because we are going to write a lot of code. We are going to tire working with Redux Toolkit in the rest of the course. So let's move to the next video. All right, so now we are going to generate our project. So here is VS Code, and I have created a folder for our project. And what you just need to do here is just to go your system, just go into your system and choose a directory. For example, for me, I choose my D directory, and I come here, I go here, and I go here. So this is our project, and this is the server side we just finished, which is the back end that we just finished right here. So, but what I did, I just go back right here, and this is the client I've created for our project. And in here, I created a folder called dev, and this one, just to right click on this one right here, and I just have to open with VS Code, right? So you can just do same like that, just choose a directory and create an empty folder, and then just right click and open with VS Code. And so that is how we got our project, that is how we got our folder right here. So coming here to VS Code, what we just need to do here is to, using Windows, I'm just going to control backtick to open a terminal right here. I'm going to close this, and I'm going to remove this one so we have a full screen. So inside here, we're going to create a brand new React project. So I'm going to say npm, then we're going to say create. So we're going to be using Vite. So we're going to say create Vite at latest. So this one will give us the latest version of Vite. And then we're going to enter the name of our project. So it's going to be by now. So the name of our project is bynow.com, right? That is the name of our project. So we're just going to hit on enter. So right here, we're going to choose our template. So we're going to use React. And then we're going to choose JavaScript, this one right here. And I'm just going to pull this one up a little bit. So here we're going to see that our project has been generated. So what we're just going to do here is to follow this instruction right here. So the first thing we're going to do is to cd into our project, then run npm install and run npm run dev, then our project is started. So the first one here is to cd into bynow.com. So I'm just going to say cd. I'm going to say bynow. Okay, sorry. This bynow, yeah.com. Then the next thing is to do npm install, and so now we're going to wait for some time until this project finish generating. So for that, now I'm just going to pause this project. I'm going to pause this video. So when this project finish generating, we're going to come back here and continue. So now we can see that our project has finished generating. So the next thing we're going to do is to run the third command, which is npm run dev. So I'm just going to say npm run dev, and we'll just hit enter. So here we have our project being generated, and you see here we're having Vite version 5.4.9, right? So that is what we did by running Vite at latest. But if you want to use, if you have a specific version of Vite to use, so you just specify the Vite, just like we discussed in the overview section, right? So now we're just going to follow this link right here, and here we have our new React project being created for us. So in our next video, we're going to explore the project and see what we got inside. So see you there. All right, so coming back here, this is the project that we generated in our previous video, and we can see that this project is actually running on localhost 5173. So let's go back into our project. So now I'm just going to close it. So let's open up our project. So here is our project bynow.com, and these are the default folders that are generated, or the default files that are generated along with our project. So if you are not new to React applications, so you must have been familiar with all this right now. But if you are new to this, we're just going to quickly run through these files and default directories that we have right here. So to start with, right here, this one is our Vite configuration class. The file right here, and we might not be doing anything right here. We're not going to touch this file. We just want to leave it as it is. And this one is README. Actually, README is every file that we see. Maybe when we create a Git repository, this is the file that we see, README, or those things. And now this one is our package.json, where this file here is where we are going to, all the dependencies we are going to be using in our application. This is the file that we are going to be installing them in. So for example, if you see right here, you're going to see, we will look right here, we're going to see the name of our project right here. And we see this private here is set to true. And here is our version, is the version of our project, of which we can just change. If you want to version the project, you can just change the version number right here. And the type is module right here. And we'll see the script. So this is where last time, remember, we run npm run dev, right? So this is the dev that we're actually running right here, which is the start script here. So what I just want to do before we pass this section, I just want us to set a permanent port right here. So we can just set a permanent port by saying -- port, and then we're going to say 51. Last time, if you go to the browser, we're going to see last time we have our project, our project running on 5173. So we just want to make this port permanent, but I want to change this one. Instead of 73, I want to change it to 74. So we just want to make it, we just want to have a permanent port being set for our project. So here I'm going to say 5174. I'm going to say 74. So this one is going to be the permanent port for our project, right? And having done this now, here, if we go here, we'll see our dependencies. This is the section for our dependencies right here. And currently, we don't have any dependencies installed. The only dependencies we have is the React library and the React DOM library. So these are the two default dependencies that we have here that is keeping our project running on the browser right now. And here we can see that we're actually using React 18. That is what we're using right here. And if we go down, we're going to see other dependency called dev dependency. This section here is called dev dependencies. So every dependencies that are going to be coming here are those dependencies that we need for development purpose. But the dependencies that are going to be powering our application when hosted or in production are the dependencies that are going to be coming here. So that is the two sections we have right here. So one is dependencies that will power the application in production. Then the other section is the dependencies that will power our application in the development environment. So these are the two segments we have right here. And so having done this now, we're going to open up our project again directory, and then I'm going to close this one. So this one is package.json log. Definitely we're not going to be doing, where is it? This one right here. So we're not going to be doing anything right here. We're not going to be doing anything right here. We're going to leave it as it is here. So this one is automatically, while we are working on our application, so some values are automatically generated right here. So this one, we're not going to be touching this one. And this one here is our application. That is the master file. Like I said, the master file, which is the entry point of our project, of our application. So if you look right here, we're going to see a div here with ID root, right? So we're going to come to this one later and in a moment. So just take note of this root div right here. So this is where all our templates are going to be displayed, right? And here we have a script tag right here that is showing main.js as our script file. Just take note of these two tags right here. So we're going to close, but meanwhile, before we close this, if we go back to our browser, we're going to see that here we have Vite plus React, right? And that is what we are actually seeing in here right now. So, but now I'm just going to change this one right here. We're going to change it. So now I'm going to say buy now dot, the buynow.com. We're going to change this. Meanwhile, I'm just going to say buy now dot, I'm going to say .com, right? So we can just leave it like this, buynow.com. So now if we go back to the browser, we're going to see that the name has changed. So here we see buynow.com. So the name of our project has changed, right? So that is just the template. So this is the master template for our project. So you can see that this is the title. So now we are not going to be doing anything right here. We're just going to leave this one as it is, but take note of these two files right here, these two tags. We're going to come back to it. So moving forward, this one is another configuration file that we're not going to be work with. We're not going to be touching. We're not going to be editing anything right here. So some of the settings here are actually generated automatically. And so this is our git ignore. And then we come to this section of our source. This is our source folder, the directory right here, where we're going to be creating our components and everything we're going to be creating in here. And now let's go to the main.js. So remember, this main.js is that main.js we saw here last time, which is this one, main.js right here. So this one is the entry point of our application. You see here we have this app tag right here, this app component actually right here. And this app component is what we are seeing right here. Is what we are seeing right here. So everything that is in here, this is the app. So this is the app component, and this is the return JST, right? So everything we are seeing right here is what we are seeing in our browser, right? So for example, if we go to our browser, we're going to see this one right here, Vite plus React, right? Now, if we go back here, so this is the Vite plus React we are seeing. So here, I'm just going to change this one right here to buy now. Buy now. For example, I'm just going to say .com, buynow.com. So if we go to our browser, we're going to see that this thing has changed. So we see buynow.com right here, right? So that is the app. So that is the app component where we're going to assemble all the components we're going to be creating. So this where we're going to be routing our applications, and all the components we'll be creating. This where we're going to assemble them, and then we're going to take this app just as we have seen it right here. We're just going to leave it right here, and so this one now is going to be rendered in our master template right here, right in the root. And if we go here, let's go back here. So we're going to see this ID, right? This element right here called root, right? So we have document.getElement by ID root. So that is render this app there. So that is what we are getting right here. So that is the ID. This is the document we are getting by ID right here. So the ID is root, where we are going to be rendering all our components inside. So this is just a quick introduction, a quick explanation to what we actually have right here, right? And now this is the app.js, app.css. So this is our CSS that's controlling our application. And here we have index.css. So this is the file where we're going to dump in the global style sheet, the global CSS that we're going to be using in our application. So for any style, any CSS we write here is going to take effect throughout the whole application. Same thing goes to this app.js. So anything we put here is going to take effect throughout the application. And if we go to our app.js, we're going to see that we're actually importing this CSS file right here, right? So that is just what we have. And if we go to the main.js, we see that we are importing this index.css right here, right? So everything we put right here is going to affect is going to affect the whole of our project globally. And this one right here, this app.js right here, this app.css right here, anything we put inside this app.css is going to affect everything that we have. It's going to affect all the components that we have inside this this app.js right here. So this one right here is a kind of a personal. This is a personal style sheet, file for this app right here. So everything, for example, if there are some things we don't want other component to inherit, to share, there's some styles that we don't want any other component to share. So we just want to put it here to only affect only component that we declare inside our CSS, inside this app.js right here. So this is just a quick overview of what we have right now. It might not be clear right now to you, but as we walk along, it's going to be clearer to you. So now this is our asset directory. So this is where we're going to dump our asset, maybe such as images, the images and logo that we're going to be using. So you can see the logo right here that we are seeing, right? If we go to our browser, so this is the logo we are seeing here right now. This is the logo up here that we are seeing on our browser right here. So this is the logo. So everything we're going to be having, all our images and logo are going to be located inside this asset, inside this asset right here. And this one right here is our this public directory. So this is another logo, is another public directory. Everything we put right here also once publicly, we're going to put it here as well. And right here is the module that is actually all the dependencies that we're going to be installing. This is the directory that they are going to be residing. All right, so everything here make up our project. So for now, this is just a little introduction to our project, the packages and the files we found in our project. So as we walk along the project, you're going to understand all these things more better. So let's move to the next video where we're going to start arranging our environment. So see you there. All right, so coming back here, we are just going to clean up our project and we're going to prepare our project for development. So here, like I said, we're just going to leave this template as it is. So this is the master template where every other template are going to be displayed right here. So we're just going to leave this one. So I'm going to close this. But then I'm going to come here to the app.jsx and I'm going to remove everything that is in here. So I'm going to remove this state variable. Let me make this widescreen. And then I'm going to remove everything between these fragments. So just remove everything within these fragments. Actually, I'm just going to remove everything because right now we've not gotten anything. I'm just going to remove everything right here. And I'm going to put a simple div right here. So we're just going to say welcome. Welcome to buy now. Let me just say welcome to buynow.com. Welcome to buynow.com. So this is just I want to leave here, and then we're going to remove all these imports right now, and also I'm just going to remove this one. I'm not going to need this one. I'm going to remove it. And so we're going to open up right here, and I'm going to delete this app.css because we're not going to need it. Just delete it. And this one we're going to leave, but meanwhile, I'm going to clear off everything that is in here. I'm just going to remove everything. So we're going to define our own style sheet right here. So remember, this is the global style sheet template. So whatever we put inside this index.css is going to affect everything. Now, this one here, this app component is where we are going to route and put all our components right here. But this one right here, this index, this CSS file is our global CSS file where we're going to declare all our styles. So, and this global CSS right here, this index.css is used inside our main.jsx right here. You see, it's being used here. So that means as long as this app component is here, every style that we declare inside this file is going to affect this component and every template inside this component and every component that are inside this component, except we override those styles from their different components. But if those styles are not overridden, so every style that is in here is going to affect everything inside this app component right here. So it's just how we're going to organize our components. And we are not going to touch anything right here. We're just going to leave it as it is. So we're going to close it. And also I'm going to close this one, and I'm going to close this one too. And the next thing we're going to do, I'm just going to come here I'm going to right click in here, and we're going to create, I'm just going to click on it and create a new, here we're going to create a new folder. So this one we're going to call it images, right? So we're going to come back to it later. And so I think this is just all we need to clear for now. This is all we need to clear. So having done this right now, I'm just going to, so now everywhere is clean. So I'm just going to right click and close all tabs, close all. And so like we discussed last time during this section of introduction to this front end, so we said we're going to be using Redux as our state management library, right? So we're going to be using Redux Toolkit to manage our state throughout this project. So we're just going to install the dependency and all. We're going to set up our foundation, and at the beginning, so we're going to be building on top gradually as we move on along this project. So in our next video, we're going to install all the dependencies that we need immediately and build our foundation before we move on. So we're going to see you in the next video. So right now, let's go to the browser and see what we're supposed to do. So now this one is Redux website. So here we just go to type reduxtoolkit.js.org and it's going to bring you here. So this one is the official Redux website where you can actually read more about Redux. But what we just want to do right here, we're just going to scroll down. So here, these are the dependencies that we need to install to actually start working with Redux Toolkit. So here, if we're using npm, you use this one right here, and if you're using yarn, you use this one right here. But being that we're using npm, we're going to just copy this one right here. I'm just going to copy, and then we're going to go back to our project. So now we're going to open up our terminal here. Let me close this. So let me just pull this back and paste this in. And also, after putting this right now, we're just going to also enter React Redux. So if we go back to the website again, we're going to see that we have two dependencies that we're supposed to install. We install this one right here and this one right here. So I'm just going to copy this one along, just copy. And then we're going to go back to our project and paste it in. So let's just go here. So I'm going to push forward and paste this one in, and then we're going to install. So let's install. So let's wait a moment while it installs. So here we can see that they have been installed. So to confirm this, let's open our package.json. I'm going to remove this for a moment. Let's close this. So here we have React Redux and we have Redux Toolkit right here. So these are the two dependencies we need to start working with Redux. So now the next dependencies we're going to install, Bootstrap and React Bootstrap. So here again, we're going to open our terminal. So I'm just going to go here to paste in React Bootstrap and Bootstrap, and then we're going to hit on enter. Let me zoom out a little bit so you can see clearly. So here we have React Bootstrap and the Bootstrap. So we're just going to hit on enter to get this installed. So let's wait a moment while it installed. So now it has finished installation. So let's close this and check it out. So here we have Bootstrap 5 point something, and here we have React Bootstrap version 2 point something. So here, these are just the dependencies, the immediate dependencies we need for now. All right, so now that we have installed these dependencies, so the next thing we're going to do, we're going to go to this main.jsx right here. So we're going to import the Bootstrap right here. So now this is our global style sheet file right here. And now we're going to pull in Bootstrap in addition, right? So I'm just going to go below here and say import. Import. And here we're just going to say Bootstrap. I'm going to say Bootstrap. Yeah, Bootstrap slash this. I was just going to pick this one right here. But meanwhile, we're going to take the minified version of Bootstrap. So this one right here. So you're going to say bootstrap.this.css.bootstrap minified version, right? So that's just all we need to do right here, and we're going to close this down. All right, so now the next thing we're going to do right here, like we explained, that we're going to be using Redux in our system, just as we have installed Redux dependencies already. So before we move on, we're just going to create our empty store. So here, I'm going to click on this source folder and create a new folder. So this one, I'm going to call it store. And right click, you can just click on right click, just click on this one here and create a new folder. And this folder, I'm going to say store.js, and we're going to hit on enter. So in here, the first thing we're going to do is to import, let's say import. Import. So we're going to say config store, configure, right? So we're going to say configure store. Here, this is store. And then we're going to come out right here. We're going to say we are getting this one from. So we're going to say from at Redux. Let's say at Redux Toolkit, this one right here. So this is where we're going to get it from. And after that, now we're going to come out here to create an empty store. So we're just going to say export. Export. This is going to be const. Const. So this one I'm going to call it store equals config store. And here we're just going to create our empty store, right? So we're going to say bracket, and we're going to have the curly braces inside, right? So we're just going to leave this on for here right now. But meanwhile, before we go, we're going to create an empty reducer inside here. We're going to say reducer, and we're just going to make it empty for now, right? So it's just all we need to do here for now. So we're going to come back to it later. So as we are moving on, we're going to be coming here to declare our reducers as we are creating them one after the other. All right, so having done this now, we're just going to close it down. And then we're going to come to our main.jsx. So here we're going to import. So we're going to import our provider. We're going to say provider. Yeah, provider. And this one we are getting it from Redux. So from React Redux. Let me just say Redux when you come forward. Yeah, this one right here, React Redux. And after that, we're going to get the store we just created. Import store from. So this one we're going to say we're getting it from the store, right? So we're going to say store slash store.js, this one right here. And after that, we're going to come here to get our provider. Oh, sorry. Provider. Yeah. So I'm just going to cut this one and wrap it here. Right here. Why are we having two up here? So then we're just going to say store equals store. That is store we just imported up there. All right, so this is just the only thing we need to set up our store in our app. All right, so now that I've done with the basic setup of our store, the next thing we're going to do is to set up our basic router, so that we just want to set up the basic router so that we're going to be building upon it step by step. So now the first thing we're going to do right here, I'm just going to open our terminal. And in here, we're going to install the React router DOM dependency. So here, I'm just going to say npm install. I'm also going to say React router. So I'm going to say npm install React router DOM. I'm just going to hit on enter. So now this library has been installed. So let's remove it and let's open up our package.json to confirm this. So right here, we see that this dependency has been installed for us. So let's close it down. So the next thing we're going to do is I'm going to come here. So in our source folder, we're just going to click on our source folder. We're going to create our first component, our first folder right here. So we're going to say component. So this folder we're going to call component. And inside this component folder, we're going to create two folders. So we're going to create one is going to be common folder, and the other one here is we're going to call it layout. So we're going to say layout. Then inside the layout, we're going to create a file, and this one we're going to call it root layout. And now we're going to say root layout.jsx. And inside the JSX, we're going to create our component. RAFC. So I'm going to make this one widescreen for a moment. Now, the only thing we're just going to do right here for now is to bring in a component called outlet from the React router DOM. So I'm just going to close this. But meanwhile, we're going to give this one a self-closing tag, and then we're going to remove this one right here. So we're just going to go up right here to do the import. Import outlet from, from React router DOM, this one right here. So this is just all we need to do for here. This is just all we need to do here for now. So let's go back to our app.js. So here we're going to bring some imports. Let me pull down a little bit. So I'm going to import routes. Yeah, this one here. Then I'm going to import router provider. This one right here, I think. Yeah, this one. And then I'm going to say create browser routes. This one here. And then I'm going to say create routes from elements. This one right here. So let's save it. Let's save to have a good format. So these are the 4 things we just need here for now. And the next thing we're going to do here is we're going to come down here. So here I'm going to say const router equals this one here. We're just going to open. Then inside here we're going to say create route from element, this one here. And in here we're going to bring in routes, this route right here, and we're going to set this part. We're just going to take this suggestion, but meanwhile we are not going to close it here, but rather we're going to have a separate closing tag, this one here. And let's break it down. So meanwhile, this one here, we're going to change this element to, we're not going to put any div right here. Rather, we're going to bring in the root layout we just created a few seconds ago. We're going to say root layout. Yeah, this one right here. And then let's close it. I'm just going to give it a self-closing tag. I think I'm going to fine-tune some of my plugins. It's giving me a hell of problems. Okay, so this is just all we need to do right here. So now we're going to come down here. I'm going to remove this one, and then we're going to have a bracket right here. So just like the suggestion given to us, we're just going to follow the suggestion. But meanwhile, we don't need to have this one here. We just want to remove this one and give it a self-closing tag here. Now, what we just did here basically is that now we're just trying to set up our basic route so that now from now henceforth, as we are going on, all the router we'll be creating will be going just like as you're seeing the suggestion in here. Everything will be going in here, right? So that's just all we want to do. Now we just want to return this router right here, this router module that we've created right here. And this app here, if we go back to our main, we see that we're actually using the app right here, which means we are using every component that we have routed right here inside here, and here we are wrapping our app right here with our store, which is our Redux store for our global state management. So this is just the basic layout we want to set up right here in this video. I think let's go back right here. Okay, so here we've created our layout and we have set up our basic router layout. So I'm going to see you in the next video. All right, so now that I've done with the basic setup of our router and our Redux store, so the next thing we're going to do in this video is we're just going to go here to the layout folder. So then we're going to create the basic components that are going to make up our layout. So now we're just going to come out to our layout folder, and I'm going to create a new file. So this file, we're going to call it the footer. We're going to first create the footer. So here we're going to have footer.jsx. And the next one we're going to create right here is the navbar. Navbar.jsx. And so we're going to create another footer. We're going to create the header. Sorry, not footer. Sorry, guys. So we're going to create another component called the header. We're going to create the header right in here. So we're going to say header.jsx. JSX. I think for now these are just the components that are going to make up our layout. When we say layout, these are the components that are going to be common, that are going to persist across all our applications. For example, the layout, the footer is going to be in every pages. The navbar is going to be on every pages, and the header also is going to be on every pages. So, and this root layout right here is the one to wrap all these components so that everything can work together. So have done this now. The next one we're going to do, we're going to come here to the common folder. So for now, we're going to create a file called the sidebar. So we're going to call this one sidebar.jsx. So this one is going to be common to every pages or to every component we're going to have in our project. So another one we're going to have in this common folder, we're going to create another component, and this component this one is going to be the search bar. We'll search bar.jsx. And another component we're going to have is the paginator. And we're going to say paginator.jsx. And next, we're going to create another one here. So this one, we're going to call it load spinner. Load spinner.jsx. And another one we're going to create is no available, or we're going to say no products available. So we're going to call this no products available.jsx. All right, so I just want to say you shouldn't be worried about all this component right now. You are going to see where each of this one is going to be used and how they are going to be used as we move on. So I just wanted to create all these ones right now as in the common folder and create these ones right here in the layout folder. So in our subsequent videos, you're going to see how we are going to use them and where they are going to be used. Now, the next thing we're going to do here is to go to our index.css folder, this one right here. And then I'm going to just dump in the CSS I've customized already. So as we walk along, you're going to be seeing what each of these segments or which of these CSS classes are doing. So I'm just going to paste this in. And this folder, this CSS file is in the introduction to the front end. So you can just, in case you've not downloaded that resource, so just go to the introduction to the front end and download this resource so that you just set up your environment just like the way I'm setting up this one right now, so that we can actually move on the same page, right? So as we move on, you're going to see where we're going to be using all these ones sec by sec as we're moving on. So having done this right now, I'm just going to close this down. Now we're going to, in our next video, we're going to start implementing all these components one by one according to their turn. So see you there in the next video.